Yeah. None of those sounded like words. Wow. That's one heck of a story, but like I said, yeah, like, yeah. Turkish autobiography. That's exciting. Oh, this is what you've done. He needs help. Hope she has lots of ice cream. I don't know. We're not. Yeah, don't like lose stuff. Like I'll just buy a new one then, but like can we just be like yeah, I feel like as long as it's like binning it, because they can like recycle it properly. I'm like, yes, take it. Like, so many stuff that like don't bin it, don't actually it properly. I don't know where to go. What to do. Yeah, exactly. But like, oh, my hand, I guess it's it sounds like that. Yeah, then there's like 3 different meters that break down as well, so it's not actually able to do like. I think my dad would go where Tillis then is. These lights, the house is so dark as well. Yeah. We have like, yeah, we have like the morning. We always have everything. Especially on the stairs, where we have the hole in the wall.
Leo, ¿te llevas papa muerta? Vamos al
Like landscape. We've been talking about like you get like pace of travel time no matter where you live.
Hey. Just getting set up here. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the stream. I'm not Jason Disbury. Nor am I his clone. But we are some of you won't. My name is Dave. My YouTube channel is Trinity 4. It's my second YouTube channel with that name, but this one, the first one went away due to medical information. This one, my current one, is on strike, so Jason very kindly said I could go live on this channel today. And, I'm in Wales, actually. If you haven't recognized it by now, this is Wales Cathedral behind me. So welcome to Wales. Welcome to Wales. I have just bannered up. This is when you come out of this establishment here, you'll be faced with this information. I'm going to put a little bit of chalk down, probably get people to avoid my banner on the floor because that could cause people consternation. This is a new one. And I should have maybe covered that gap down.
Yeah, but it's not in.
I call this stream Memorial Live because, well, as you should know by now, at Bob Nodell. Can I give you a flyer, mate? Bob Nodell is with God, or with gone back to the place he came from. Bob Nodell is someone I would say a friend, although we never met. And certainly he's one of the giants of truth seeking. Talk about him a little bit today, and remember him and others that have fallen as well along this way, and really just to honor those who seek to do something such that evil cannot prosper in the way that it is. This town is kind of half busy. It's Easter Sunday today. It's Easter Sunday today, so there's a few people around, but perhaps not as busy as a normal weekend day. I don't know. I came here recently. You can go and check it out on my YouTube channel. I've been doing a few lives the last few Sundays, trying to build up for the summer ahead. Lots to do and lots of information to share. This is really outside of the paradigm. This is breaking the matrix. This is people who don't even necessarily watch YouTube or haven't even begun to become aware that the things that I talk about are being censored. So I'm quite happy with my little stand here, and it's worked out quite nicely. These little 4 orange barriers were lying here, covering up this pole, or this thing, so I thought I would use it as I have before. So, I'm ready here. Checking out some new information.
Is this about the earth? What is this about?
Yeah, this is about that we've been faked about where we live,
Okay.
and that when you start to question the narrative of the heliocentric globe spinning around the sun, all of that stuff doesn't stack up when you really look at what evidence we have.
Is this from a religious point of view? Or?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
Not at all. Religion used to be the control system. This was the control system of the world, but today science is the control system. And
Okay.
people trust NASA more than they trust their mum. And so if NASA says a certain thing, yep, we did it. We went to the moon.
So what is this saying that the
Well, there's a lot of evidences that can be brought to bear that don't stack up the globe model. So, for example, we're told we can see curvature with a ship going over the horizon. And yet when we take a hot air balloon or even a higher weather balloon and take a regular camera up there, it's flat, and when you take the lenses off where you want it to be curving and you realize how your eyesight works, you go, okay, maybe it could be that it's just flat.
okay.
And then this is like the physics of water. You know, we know that water, it doesn't matter what the bottom of the container is, deep end, shallow end of the pool, it's still going to have the same level on top. And that swimming pool, if it was 1,000,000 times bigger, would still physically do the same thing. We're told to believe that it's going to start buckling in the middle or bending like a ball would. And we don't see that. So that's what water does. It always forms a level. It never does this. You could say a meniscus or a teardrop or something like that, or a raindrop might have that roundness, but that we know that's because there's a surface tension being brought to bear on that little droplet of water. But once it settles in a pool, that pool's going to be level. So then a lot of this imagery here is what people believe when they think about Earth from space. But actually, turns out that these are all being painted. None of these are real photos.
So what does Earth look like from space?
Well, this is it. I mean, this is what we, this is what we can see. You know, there are limits to how far. Just like if you were scuba diving, there's limits to how far you can see. And so the same is true in the air. It's just thin water, and so there's limits to how far you can see. So as far as we can tell, we live inside of a contained environment.
So let's say if you went out into space, what do you see from that point? And what about other planets? Are they all the same?
Okay, so everything that we think of as outer space that has the universe in it, all of that is actually much closer and all inside a container that we've never left.
Okay.
We believe that the sky might be as low as 100 kilometers, because when you ask space people and science people, well, how far high is the sky? They'll never give you a clear answer. So we think that at about 100 kilometers high, there is some kind of roof to this world. And we can't leave that. So when we look at the stars and the galaxies and all these things at night, what we're looking at is electrical discharges within the roof or coming from outside of the roof. But it makes sense to me that they would be like a disco ball on the top of the nightclub, and it's just that's spinning day after day after day. And at nighttime you see the stars that happen to be in your part of the disco at that time of day.
I see. What you said about the heliocentric, so the alternative to that, what is that?
Geocentric.
Which is
we're
the center.
Earth is the center.
Okay.
And then the idea that there's a vacuum of space cannot be substantiated by normal physics. When you think about a deodorant can or a pop can or soda can, whatever, once you break the container, there is an equalization of pressure immediately. And so we're certain that we have to be inside of a container. Outside of that, we speculate that there might be water. That part is kind of biblical, where in the Bible, Genesis, it says God separated the water from the water.
Yeah.
And when we look at sonoluminescence and how when you fire frequencies through water, you can create a star, and you can create different patterns through vibrating sound plates. You can do all of that. Those are the things. That's what we see when we look at Mars and Venus. If we don't use computer overlay, to render the image.
Okay.
So the idea is there's stones or rocks or giant gas balls that are holding together for millions of years, floating around each other on a cushion of time and space. That's all pseudoscience. That's stuff that we can't prove.
Yeah.
So when we look at, what could our container be like? Well, we discovered that in the 1950s, world powers signed a treaty called the Antarctic Treaty. And it stops you and me, regular people, even if you have as much money as you want. You can't go below the 60th parallel except on a guided tour onto a very small peninsula. Right. So we don't really know what's happening at the extremities of our world. We're kept inside of a very small container. You can sail around it, just like you could drive around wells. You can sail around it, but that doesn't mean you can go underneath it. And we've never flown underneath the globe. There's no record of a flight going in at one side and coming out at 180 degrees on the other side.
Okay.
So we think we're in a very small but personally made or made for us world. What's outside of that? Are there other planets, or other universes? Are there other realms like this? Maybe, but one of the great theories we have is that if we're on a plane, then this plane could be much larger than we've ever been told. So there could be aliens, if you like, from people from extra terra, from extra land, that is extra land elsewhere that we've never been allowed to sail to. So there may be things that we still don't know. We have to keep it very much on the spec. But what we can say for sure is that we can't move rotation or spin, Earth spin. We cannot move that. And Bob Nodell never proved that. There's a guy who passed who's a very famous flat earther, globe buster. He passed 2 days ago. and he did a a gyro experiment years ago for a documentary that went on Netflix called Beyond the Curve. And on that, they found there was some drift in the ether, or some drift in the air. And we think that there is an ether, like Nikola Tesla said. There's an ether. We live inside of that. It moves, but the Earth isn't moving. And we can't find any experiment that proves that Earth is moving.
Okay, so the only thing that I just think about is what makes us so special that we would be the center? What about, why is it us in the middle?
That's
why
a perfect question. But just that you can ask that question means that the program has worked, which is to demean and diminish you, to make you believe that you are less than the breath of God or the spark of the Creator, that you are the highest thing here.
But does this come from a religious
There's a lot of
point of
people
view?
who do have a religious preference when it comes to this, but not me myself.
Okay.
Me myself, I'd say that what
do you
Jesus
believe?
was saying was that the Christ is you. Is that the spark of God is in each of us equally. We are all created equal in God's eyes. So what religion does is it says, no, Jesus is the guy. He died for you on Easter Sunday or whatever, or Friday or whatever. And that if you don't believe in him and have him as your master, if you like, then God's going to be unhappy with you. When in fact, I say that the only relationship you have is with yourself, and through that you have a relationship with God.
Okay, I see.
I was an atheist, by the way. I didn't believe in any of this, and I believed in evolution. I believed it came from monkeys, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But in fact, what if your higher self had an intention to come here and express itself in your form?
Okay. So you come from it from more of a spiritual point of view?
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
To me, there's definitely a spiritual thing going on here.
Okay.
I had you heard of ayahuasca?
Yes, I
Yeah,
have.
so I did something like that, DMT, the dimethyltryptamine. I did that in 2015.
Okay.
And I was 47 at the time, and I was an atheist. And 7 minutes later, I wasn't an atheist because I'd had that close encounter with my higher self and a sense of God that was irrevocable and as clear as anything that I'd ever experienced.
So where did this come into it then? How did you, how...
Well, for me,
what was
that
the
was
realization for you?
Well, for me, that was a big kind of wake-up call to go, wow, there's something true about this place, that we're being given science that is completely opposite to that. Because I raised my older children on a science of Big Bang, Lucky Strike, there could be an asteroid can wipe us out, dinosaurs went away, all of that sort of stuff. How lucky we are that the dinosaurs went away so that we could be, I believed all of that stuff. Then I have this experience, and so I start to look at everything. By then I'd already discovered that the 9/11 Twin Towers attack wasn't what they tell you on the TV. I'd already discovered that. So I knew that there was something wrong with world government and there was collusion going on at some level. But once I saw a document, someone said, "Oh, Earth is flat." I was like, "No." Even though as a kid, I used to say it was in the Bible. The Bible's a flat Earth. But I didn't accept it. But when I saw this formula here, this is trigonometry. And although I don't agree with it, this is what globe will tell you that its measurements should be. For a globe, you should have a certain amount of curvature. Over 100 miles. 100 miles, there should be 66,000 feet, or 1.2 miles of curvature, which when I've been in an airplane at 40,000 feet and I can see over the Mediterranean, I can see 100 miles. And there's no curvature there. It looks like a perfectly flat mirror.
You must struggle trying to deliver this message. I can imagine a lot of people don't.
Yes.
It's like...
I'm a heretic. Well, I'm speaking against the belief.
I have respect for what you're... I definitely do. I can't say I'm completely convinced, but I can fully respect what you're,
Thank you.
What was here,
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Okay.
It is very difficult telling people that the things that you believe are perhaps not true. And it's like, but I want Santa to be real, and if gravity isn't, a force that's pulling things underneath a ball and holding the oceans and ships and planes in a way that makes no sense in a physical world, I'm giving up a lot of the stuff that I believe in, and people will even say to me, gravity is a law, it's a law, not a theory, Same with relativity. Relativity is a good one as well. The idea that everybody's standing on the top of the ball, that's what you get taught in school. That relativity puts everybody, wherever you happen to be, everything is down from you. But if you really lived on a ball, then some people would live on the side of the ball, and so for them, they would look up towards towards Europe,
Yeah,
rather than everybody's always gone top and or ships are always going down. If you stand on a tiny island, the ships are theoretically going down in every direction away from
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
And,
Yeah.
but I could say to people, if you were sailing down to France, when you get to France, are you going to be sailing back up?
Yeah.
Or does it look like the ship's going down again?
Yeah.
Could that be a trick of the eye? Could that be perspective and angular resolution? You know how the train is tiny when it's 2 miles away
Yeah.
and then huge when it's in the station?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
the
it's very
same thing.
interesting to listen to, but I appreciate you speaking about it. I've got to go back to my family, but,
Cool, well,
but thank you for that.
All the best. Thanks. Let me get a flyer going. Well, welcome to the street if you've just arrived. I'm in Wales, and I got some chalk and a few flyers. Yeah, we'll do a few hours. Again, I really appreciate Jason Disbury stepping in and helping me out with a loaner. Oh, here go the bells again. You guys remember from where were we the other day? The bells were insane. Oh, it was in Glastonbury. I think they were a little bit knocked because I'd put my banners on their thing, and it's not theirs, is it? How are you guys feeling about Daryl Bob? And obviously my heart goes out to his family, Cammy, and his son, Jeremy. But you know, what does it say to all of us? And what's the lesson there? So I thought he's a young guy, you know, maybe a little hefty, but young guy. So I'm just doing my bit in the street because, you know, this is the way to change, to get out of the, you know, the controlled swimming pool that we're level. Sea level. And so yeah, I'm doing my little bit, and I want to inspire others, of course, to get involved in their own way. There are people doing plenty of good work, so it's not all about street activism. You know, like that young lady said, it must be hard, and it is hard being the village idiot, but you know, we know that we're upside down. We're in an upside down world. It's worth saying that Bob and I didn't agree on something. That is really an interesting debate to be having. Some information for you, man. Let me put a little weight on this. I've got some building rubble here. Hello ladies. I've got some great information for you. It's really to free your own mind. Oh my Lord. You see the t-shirt. This is gonna hurt, but it's got to be done. So, young man, I'm sure that's a really nice ice cream. Do you mind me asking you a question?
Yes,
Because I
sure.
see you wearing the NASA logo there. What if I was to tell you that 7-8 years ago I believed that we landed on the moon, and then I saw a documentary called A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon by a guy called Bart Chabrel, and there in that you see footage of them faking it, NASA's own footage of them faking it. I was already questioning the fact that we hadn't been back in 50 years. You know, it's like if you have a technology 50 years ago, it's normally gone positively, it's gone in the right direction, and we should be on holiday there by now. That's what I was told when I was a kid, that we would go there on holiday. Now NASA tell us that they have lost all of the telemetry data, all the means of proving that they actually did what they say they did. They've lost all of that, all of the files. And they say now, even they say, oh, well, we'd love to go back, but we've lost the technology and it's a difficult process to build it back up. That's Don Petty, he's an astronaut. So there's some really curious things about the lunar lander. Like, for example, we never got the lunar lander to work properly here on Earth. We could never control it, even when it was just the chassis, let alone when it had all of the bodywork on and all the batteries and all that sort of stuff. And then we make a phone call from the moon 250,000 miles away to President Nixon's office in 1960, right? And today, when I drive out of Wells by about 5 miles, I can go to a point where there's no signal. I can't make a phone anywhere because there's no phone mast around me. So phones all work on wire or masts, and if you send a signal a long way, you need a super powerful battery to do that.
What does that say?
Even the footage, you know, when they took off from the moon, they got this footage of the camera panning up. And it's like, who was the cameraman that panned up that footage as the lunar lander left? And how did they Bluetooth or how did they send it back to the moon from the moon in 1960 for us to watch it here on Earth? There's all these questions that you go, oh, maybe it's but trust me, I was a NASA fanboy. I've been to one of the rocket places in America to go and look at rockets and stuff like that. Enjoy the ice cream. But this is just, I don't want to give you a hard time. I'm just offering you some questions for you to ask as you grow older. Go, you know, am I sure that NASA aren't the deceivers that some people say that they are? Even in Hebrew, the word NASA means to deceive. So the people who start the rocket program are Nazi scientists from Operation Paperclip. A guy called Werner von Braun takes us to the moon, right? On his tombstone, there's only one inscription, Psalms 19:1, which says, the heavens showeth God's the handiwork, and that there's a firmament, there's a roof. We can't get out of this place. And the International Space Station, that's all been faked in a swimming pool, man. Either that, or they're doing it with like these rocket comet like dives, or when Tim Peake went, he used circus wires to pretend he could do like a 360 somersault in space. All fake. All fake. And people say they can see the ISS flying overhead sometimes. And well, if I'm the magician trying to fake you, I am going to give you something like that to see. But the truth is, they say it's traveling 19,000 miles an hour at a height of 250 miles. You can't see a city from 250 miles away, let alone a thing that's the size of a 747.
Sorry to cut in. What do you make about these numbers all being found in nature, in flowers, patterns and everything else? I mean, like from the micro to the macro of creation?
Yeah, like the Fibonacci.
Yeah.
Like,
So why
I don't
would...
know that those numbers are
No, they
found.
are exactly, yeah, because
Oh,
there's
is it?
512 is the heart. So
Okay.
you go from there, and then you've got Giza coded, you've got 288, which is a Hertz frequency,
Okay.
flower of life, geometry, sacred
Okay, that's
geometry.
interesting.
So it's all found. So from the micro to the macro, from the Big Bang, as people would say, is really fake and everything else. It's just the story of creation. So from the macro down to the micro, it's the story of creation.
Okay.
And Earth's no difference because it's an organism like me and you. So you're basically your own planet.
Yeah, I
So
like
you're
it.
just your own organism. So this is sacred geometry,
agree.
and all them numbers are spot on, absolutely perfect.
So,
Correct.
so you'd agree that the Earth is like me?
Yeah, well,
Yeah?
pretty much, yeah. From the mind, from the cell division, from a
Okay.
cell, from a single cell.
I get you. I think
From a
we are
single
micro
cell.
to macro, absolutely.
Yeah.
right?
So that's
But
all.
name
That's
me-
all we're looking at with the
Well,
Earth.
can you name me one fruit or anything in nature that has no skin?
Something that has no skin.
Well, you have a skin on you. An egg has a shell. An orange has a peel.
But they're
right?
organisms, like me.
Exactly.
That's what I'm talking about, nature. That's what I'm saying. All these patterns that are right there for the air,
So what
they're
I offer-
found in nature.
Yeah.
So-
But what I offer to people is that there is no, in nature, there is no fruit that puts the fruit on the outside of the skin.
There's not that many flat fruits either.
Well, I don't say that the earth is flat. I think that it's an orange, but we live inside the orange, not on
Pear-shaped,
the
isn't it?
outside.
Is what
They
it is.
say
So
pear-shaped. Yeah, okay.
It's an oblate matrix, isn't it? That's what the matrix is. It's the mother, so it's the matrix.
Well, it's like, for me, it's a torus system, and a torus can be that sort of, oblate spheroid, or pear-shaped, if you like.
Do you have a model for this? For what do you believe in? Is if it's not flat Earth, what do you actually believe in the shape of it?
I think we're an electromagnetic. So just like the fruit, just like the orange, what I say is that you can't live on the outside of the fruit, you must live on the inside of the fruit.
Yeah.
So you must be contained, that's thermodynamics. So you cut the orange right open, and in the inside where you see the seeds, that's the continents. And that's your physical
And
body.
that's the core. Say an apple is an apple core, the Earth's core. It's the same thing.
Well, do you know there's a core?
Well, yeah, I know there's a core in an apple, and I know that's from a micro to
Yeah, and-
macro
yeah,
construct. It's
yeah,
the same thing.
yeah.
And the Earth's played out on the same level as
But-
that we have.
Okay.
Because
But-
we're all organisms.
So I'm offering you
a
a
living
theory.
organism.
Yeah, I'm offering you a theory. So it's just a theory, but at the same time, the core of the Earth at 4,000 miles beneath our feet is a theory. You know, we've drilled 8 miles into the Earth's skin, so we don't actually know.
But what we do have
below
is
our
we
feet.
have the Pyramid of Giza. Angle of inclination is 51.84 degrees. Now, if you go to Glastonbury Tor, which is left by our ancestors, no flat earthers, no scientists,
They were all
nothing
flat
else.
earthers back then, bro.
Right?
The globe's only
no,
400
they
years
weren't.
old.
No, they weren't, because the Glastonbury Tor is 51.84 degrees inclination, the same as Giza. It's 158 meters in elevation, which is 518.4 feet, exactly the same as Giza. So this is what our ancestors have left us, and they're showing the 1,584 diameter of the core of Earth is what they're showing,
Okay.
and that's why they've done it. Either side is the 3168. So they're the numbers that are exactly coded to
Yeah,
Giza, because they show
yeah.
the diameter of Earth,
Well-
exactly how it is, and it's all correct, perfectly.
Do you know that the Giza pyramids were aligned with the Orion's belt?
No, they weren't. They were aligned with our 3 North Stars, which is what's depicted on the Lady Chapel floor in Wells Cathedral.
Okay. And are they still aligned with that today?
Not anymore, it's aligned with Polaris. They were aligned with Thuban at the time of the Egyptians, and now we're due to switch to Vega, which is coded by Leonardo da Vinci in the actual tilt of Earth
Okay.
and St. John the Baptist. So all them numbers that you're using here, they come from the frequencies, basically, or sacred geometry, or the music of the spheres.
Okay.
Is where they come from, the harmonics of life, or patterns of nature.
That's interesting. That is interesting
Yeah,
to me.
so it's
I mean,
sacred. It's sacred geometry. And it's exactly what
Yeah.
our ancestors left
Yeah.
us, and it
Yeah.
all comes from light
Yeah.
as well, harmonics of life and things like that.
But then,
So-
but the fruit again, the fruit is always on the inside of the skin. So what I say to people is that we live inside of a fruit, a giant electromagnetic fruit, and on this plane that we live on, we have surrounding us a giant egg, if you like, and we must be inside of that rather than on the outside. And when it comes to the Earth itself curving, I don't necessarily agree with this formula. I think this formula is wrong, but this is the formula that globe defenders will say we've got a certain amount of curvature. Now,
Yeah.
we've gone out to try and measure that curvature,
Yeah.
and we can't find it. We know that Lake's 10 miles long a level,
Yeah,
but according to this, there should be 800 inches of curvature, which should be measurable.
Yeah.
So we can hypothesize all day long, but until we go out and take this next step to measure it and say, can we measure
what you
rotation?
should try to do,
Can we
what you
measure
should use
curvature?
is stereographic projection if you want to measure it. Use stereographic projection, and what that does, it projects the sphere onto a plane surface, and that's why our ancestors thought that it was a flat surface. They never did. What they did is they produced stereographic projection onto a flat plane surface, which is how they made the Dendera in Egypt, which is how we've got the Glastonbury Zodiac and all that type of stuff. It's because they knew the Zodiac, which is coded in every church and cathedral. If you go in them, Jesus is the sun, and we've got the 12 Zodiac. And they're showing
Yeah, the
exactly
12,
what we're
and the 12
engaged in.
disciples are the 12 disciplines of the
Yeah,
mind,
yeah.
I believe. There are the 12 disciplines.
Well, yeah, we can
And
put
they're-
it into that
and,
way.
You know, so I think that absolutely that the ancients were following the luminaries, the lights in the sky
Yeah, and
very
if
closely.
they didn't have this knowledge of Earth's core thousands years ago, it wouldn't be called the Glastonbury
we still
Core.
don't have knowledge of a core, bro.
Of course we
It's
do.
theoretical.
They've had it, we've got it. It's
It's
1,584, the core, that's the miles, and then either side it equals the 7,920 miles.
So
of
that
Earth-
could
of
be
Earth's diameter.
okay, but that could be made up by the people who are trying to hoax
Not
us,
really,
right?
no. It's not really made up, is it? You can prove it. All you need to do is get a stick, put it in the ground, and you've got your sundial. You've got a homemade sundial.
Absolutely, and that
So-
works on a flat table
Well, it has
every
to,
day.
yeah, because
every
it's
time.
creating its own projection. It's a projection of the sun. It's an mirage effect. It's
if
light.
let me ask you this then. If the ancients believed that we lived on a globe,
Yeah.
when did the first globe get made?
What do you mean, when did the first globe get made?
Well,
when,
if you believe
when
the
they
thing-
crafted the globe,
Yeah,
when they
yeah,
crafted
yeah.
the globe,
When was that?
they didn't need to do anything like that, did they? It's the Greeks that have crafted the globe, isn't it?
No.
The Greeks have brought that fluid.
No, you can Google this. Like, what is the oldest globe known?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't
When
matter
was
what the oldest globe is.
Well, if I wanted to map Wales, the town, I would,
that makes
I
a
could
difference
model
of
it.
what we think we know in this time now, because our ancestors have known far more than me and you could ever know.
Yeah.
Far
But what
more,
if-
and they're showing us what
Why
it
is that?
But they've left it behind for us to find, is what I'm saying
Yeah,
to you. So
yeah.
we can't ignore that. Why
Yeah.
would we ignore that?
Yeah.
They're
Well,
not
there's-
these scientists of today, they're from 5,000 plus years ago.
Like the Sumerians, they have an astrolabe, right? That's
Yeah.
seen as the oldest computer, and that was based on the wandering stars all having their own orbit.
This is all
and moving in their
Gnosticism,
own
this is
time.
what they've taken from the
But all
Irish and
flat
from the
Earth.
Egyptians,
It's
isn't it?
all on a flat Earth.
So it's all based on what it's based on really is light and vibration. This is why
Yes.
Freemasons are Freemasonic, is because it's the sonic speed of sound, which is why the Hindus are all Om and all that type of stuff, because it's all to do with the sun's diameter, and it's all perfect. It's because we live in a construct, so it has to be geometrically, it has to be correct.
How big is the sun?
has to be
You
the
mentioned the
construct.
sun's diameter. How
Does
big
it
is it?
864,000 miles?
Now, do you know that the sun has been moved in distance 13 times over the last century? Which means that every time you move it from 3
I know
million
that
miles
this story is
different-
played out, for
to
example.
Kepler said 27 million miles, and one time science said it was 103 million miles. So every time I move the sun, I actually have to change the size of it, and the moon, by the
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
So there is, for me, no clarity on exactly how they measure it and how we can assert a certain
There's
size.
actually stories to it.
What you're seeing, what you're witnessing, is a small disk in the sky, and we're then told that it's 90 million miles
That's how they've
away.
got the geometry, because it's a disc, it's circular, so they use pi. It's mathematical. That 137 down there is the mathematical construct. It's the golden angle of light. So that's why they use it. It's right there on your paper. It's there. It's the golden angle.
Well, I say to
It's a
people this,
mathematical construct that can't be proven wrong. There's the problem.
and this is what I was talking to Bob Nodell about, is that I say that this is actually another hoax by the people who try and mislead us.
No, but this
Because-
is geometry.
No, but let me make my point. If we live on an oblate spheroid or a pear shape or whatever, but just to keep it simple, because this is what NASA provide us over here, which looks pretty circular to me.
Yeah, but you
can
know
call
what the
it whatever
circle is
you
that
want.
you're seeing there? You're not seeing the circle of the Earth. You're seeing the circle of the atmosphere. You're not seeing the circle of the Earth. You're seeing the circle of the atmosphere. So
So when they give us
you're
this,
seeing atmospheric pressure is what you're seeing. You're
So-
not seeing actually. You're not actually seeing the sea in that here. This is no sea and everything else. It's atmosphere that you're seeing.
so I'm not actually looking at
You're not looking
the
at
blue planet.
the
then.
Earth. You're looking at the spherical, the atmosphere, the surrounds us is what you're looking at.
Well, that isn't the first time I've ever heard that in all the years I've been looking at.
Have you never
showing
ever
this to people.
realised that when you look at them, when they show you these cameras and it's an atmosphere around?
Well, yeah, I see this. I see this. This is the sphere.
That's
this
the
is
reason-
the.
That's what makes it
this
so.
is the
This is the
atmosphere.
glow, yeah. So that's what
Yeah.
you're seeing.
Yeah.
That's what you're actually looking
Yeah.
at.
And when you look at it with a high, when you take it just to 120,000 feet, we see is level, right? When they zoom back and they do the Red Bull jump and they show you this, curving globe, you realize that they're using fisheye lenses to create that effect. So here we are. Neil deGrasse Tyson himself says in a jumbo jet, you're not high enough to see the curvature of Earth. So, but for me, this is when NASA send us. This is the guy called Rob Simmons. He created Blue Marble, which everybody put on their iPhone in 2002, and that Blue Marble was given to us as this is the globe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this globe here, when I look at this globe, it's a perfect sphere, and it should be bending always at the same amount. I shouldn't be able to land on a place and say, everything's flat near me. It's only going to be 8 inches in the next mile, and so on. I say that if we lived on a ball, then the ratio of bend is the same no matter where you live on the ball.
It sounds like you've got more questions than answers, to be honest with you. And right there, and do you know what? As you've got right here, you've got 93 million miles away. Now, this story was stolen from us and taken from us, which is why I fight for it now. So that 93 million miles away with the sun, that's why they have Jesus' death date is the 93rd day of the year on April the 3rd, because Jesus is the Son of Man and 93 million miles away. Now, this is the story that's coded that they've taken from us. It's our geometry. It's exactly what it is. Now, if you look at Leonardo da Vinci's painting of the Last Supper, it's 8.8 metres times 4.6 metres. Now, he was a Gnostic, he was a Grand Master of Gnosticism. He weren't no churchman or no NASA, no nothing like that trying to hide it. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they was holding sacred knowledge. Now, that is showing that 864,000 diamonds of the sun, just like Jesus' code is the 93rd day of the year, because they're trying to take this information from you with these psyops. The same people that you're saying have laid this out for you anyway, they're the ones that are laying the confusion and trying to take your knowledge from you right now.
Those are the
Trying to
same
take away
people
the
that
knowledge
give you
from the
that there's a core and that we can fly underneath.
There has to be a core
and
because that's the
gravity-
seed that we've grown from.
But
That's what
we
we've
are
grown
the
from.
core.
Yeah,
we
so,
are in
so
the
you
core.
started as a seed though.
Yeah.
So that's what the
Absolutely.
planet started as.
Absolutely. Well,
But we're on a micro to macro scale,
perhaps.
right the way down from you to a cell, to a plant, to an animal.
yeah.
Everything
Starts-
around you
yeah.
is on that scale.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense to say anything else. It's an organism. It's macro to micro.
and every organism has a bark or a skin,
Yeah.
except the globe.
Well, it does, doesn't it? It's got Earth's crust. That's
No,
what
no,
do you
no,
think
no,
that
no.
is?
All the moisture is on the outside. On a fruit, it's all on the inside.
That doesn't make any difference. Of
You
what
don't
you're
want
saying.
it to, my
Doesn't
friend,
make what
because
you-
that really
doesn't make any difference
unseats
of what you're
this.
saying.
Well, because we're given it by the same people that you're saying
Fruits are
have
full of
lied to
water.
us.
That's why you. If
Full
you
of water, but it must be contained.
But
If you
fr-
take the skin off, it dries
but
out.
we are contained in atmospheric pressure. That's the point.
No.
Of course you are.
Thermodynamics, second law says if you want to have atmospheric
But
pressure, you must
fruits are
contain
full
it.
of water. That's why if you eat on a fruit, you don't actually need to drink water because your cells are taking it on and they're
Absolutely.
nourished.
But
so
but
it's
you have
full
to
of
peel it
water.
first.
So why would the earth not be full of water then?
It is full
So
of water.
exactly, of course it is.
So
And it's
why
the same
wouldn't it
shape
have
as
a
an
skin?
apple or an orange.
Why wouldn't it have a skin?
Never mind the skin. Is it the same shape as an apple or an orange, or is it flat, or is it any other shape? It's the
I
same
think
shape as
it's like an orange, yeah.
Exactly, which is spherical, right?
But not little people running
What
on
shape
the
is it?
outside.
Orange, spherical.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You have a good day, sir.
You too. Man.
Thank
All
you.
the best. Keep an open mind, though.
Oh, very open-minded, as you well know.
I can see you. Well, there you go. We could have done with some backup here, I think, with that one. Let me give out some flyers. Thanks for stopping by. I'm obviously not Jason Disbury. I'm in Wales. That was a fairly strong encounter, wasn't it? And it's funny how much we will believe, how much you can accept what you know, but what you other people know is not relevant. No, I'll still accept that there's a core that I can't see. I've got to do a little bit more chalking. How would you guys have handled that differently? I wonder if you would have wanted to. Not the best of slabs, yeah. When I was here last time, I had some really great conversations. Oh, it was interesting what that guy said about Freemason. He said something about something of light, spear of light. Something. But it was interesting. I've never heard anyone say that those numbers, 8 inches per mile squared, matches the Fibonacci. I've never heard that, so I wasn't really prepared to agree or disagree with what he was asserting. But it is interesting if you think about it that we've been offered some truth in that about the shape of things, about sacred geometry. I will tidy up when I go. Of course.
Imperialism.
I believe that I'll be entertaining. I'll be entertaining Harry McDonald. Yeah. Even though you can't prove it. Hey, Tony with me. I've snuck in here on Jason's channel. Brian Stavely making a promo video. You're the man. Thanks for your help with the other suggestions. Brian had suggested I go live on my small channel, The Trinities, sitting on 300 subs. And I can't go live with that one, but if I went through via the StreamYard app, I could. But that was causing me grief, and this idea seemed a little simpler. Hey, Bonik, nice to get you. NH guy, yeah. Oh, it's hard. We don't want to brainwash the young. Whoops, sorry about that. Little trip hazard there. I do not want that. Daddy wants to lead boy away from this because he wants him to believe in dinosaurs and aliens coming from some far off planet. So where was I? Josh called Iron Ryan. Liz texts us that he was in hospital and not expected to make it. When I woke up midnight, so he texted. Sad. Even pixelated, you look good. Was my signal pixelated back then? I think I know what you're talking about. I'm using this as a maybe also, who knows why I happened to get a strike when I did, but I'm using this hopefully as a way of enticing some of the big boys out of the woodwork. Come and do some activism with me, or it's not flat. This is not sitting very well. Need a little bit more slack. We'll definitely get some more punters, I can assure you. But yeah, rest in peace. And Bob and a few others. I have said on my video that I made. Yeah, Voynich, that lady did hear what I was saying, which was really refreshing. Unlike that. What was I saying? That yeah, Red Herring Media, some kind of tour this year. We talked about that actually as a possibility last year, but I can't speak for anyone else at the moment. Everybody's on their life story, on their path. Let me give these guys a flyer. Take a flyer. Take a flyer. Free or it's not going to hurt. It's only information. It doesn't burn.
The Earth is not flat.
No.
So you think it's round?
Yeah, I think, but we live inside it.
You live inside it?
Yeah. There's no fruit in nature that puts its fruit on the outside of the skin. It's always going to be inside of the skin. In thermodynamics, if you've studied thermodynamics, you'll know that the second law says that to have a pressure system like we do have, you must contain it like a deodorant can.
Why does it matter if we are
What does that mean?
People use different names for God.
Oh, I see.
It all means the same thing to me, that there is a creator or a Christ, and that creator comes in you. It's in you. I don't do Easter either. Because that's saying that the whole Jesus died for my sins thing is legit. And I don't think that that's legit. I think that you are your own savior. You don't need no savior. But the government wants you to believe you evolved from apes and that you are really meant to come here and be a good slave.
these kids.
So they will mislead you so that you think there's nowhere else for you to go, that this world is insignificant, rather than, wow, this world was created for you, maybe even by you or your higher self.
But God is.
Quite interested to read that.
So
we live inside it.
Yeah. So the flat Earth is designed as a psyop to kind of get people going, oh, well, why don't you fall off the edge? But if we live like every other fruit inside of the orange,
Where's the end? Like,
the end. Well, we couldn't. So if you were a cell inside of an orange, you'd never think about getting out of that orange.
If I was
You'd
to
never be
walk
able
that
to.
way long enough, eventually I would end up back here.
Well, it depends on how that works. You know, like with sailing, because we know that the compasses work on this sort of you can circumnavigate this. If I put a big magnet in the center of Wells, I could say circumnavigate this town with my compass always pointing to that north. So if you think about that on the large scale, it is possible for us to circumnavigate. In fact, the globe is only 500 years old. So before that, sailors were sailing the world, and there's high culture from before, and they were doing that but based on they know that the water is level, and that from here to England or here to France, you're talking about a level body of water aside from swell and tide. So water is always level in a lake. It doesn't matter what you do. You can take a lake and a glass. It's always going to be level and parallel to the next lake down the mountain. That's what we find. So where does the parallel end? We say that because we're told that horizon 5 miles, the ship is going over the edge of the horizon, that this is evidence of the curve. What if we've gone out to try and measure that and found, because science is measurement, right? Not just hypothesis. We should measure it, otherwise it's just a belief system. We try to measure it with lasers and found that we can't see any curvature, which is what common sense would tell you. The reflection on a lake on a still morning is a perfect image of the landscape above it. Why? Because it's a mirror.
Why does it make a difference whether it's round or flat or
Well, if they're lying to us about everything that's going on here, then maybe the difference is because they, as I said to you earlier, that they don't want you to realize who you are and what you're doing here and what the purpose is of this whole place. For me, this is like a Disneyland that's been designed as a soul test, possibly.
Right.
But if I mislead you right at the start of Disneyland, you'll have no idea that you're only meant to go there and play for the day or the weekend and then get back to whoever you were meant to be. So it's very easy as a Darwinist, as I was, to kind of, well, nothing matters here, we're only in it for this one life, we can just mess the world up or mess ourselves up or whatever. When it doesn't, it matters so much that you take care of yourself and the world that you're in, particularly when it's this enclosed place. For me, it gave me this realization that we are, I was an atheist, by the way, before I discovered this stuff. And now
you're not anymore?
Not anymore. I know that there's a God, and I know that you are connected to that God in the same way that I am. But I don't have no religion. Is your friend trying to call you out? There's no religion that I'm trying to offer here.
No, I can see that.
No,
Yeah.
sorry, I think I'd be really bad off.
I think that the religions were designed to control people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, you believe that?
Yeah.
Well, I think that science is a religion. Scientism, this idea that we can walk on the moon and do things in a vacuum, when we've never taken a spacesuit in a vacuum chamber on Earth, but apparently we can do that when we go up there. We never got the lunar lander to work on Earth, but apparently we can do it when we get up there. We can't get a phone signal 10 miles out of Wales, but we could make a phone call to the moon in 1969. There's so many things that are wrong with it. You go, shit. It's very easy. Starts becoming very easy to see that yes, we're being deceived on a industrial level. Why is the question? Some people say it's because they're hiding extra land. Some people say it's because they want us simply to be slaves. But I think there's a spiritual soul in you that is wanting to have a higher experience. But whilst we're squabbling over which rugby team is better or which this or which that, we're never going to realize our higher essence. So I'm against what the religions are doing, but I'm also against what NASA is doing to the young and getting us to believe dinosaurs and evolution and all this shit, when in fact, whatever God is, it intended to create you perfect like you are, not wait billions of years for slime to become marsupials or fish, and then marsupials and dinosaurs had to go out the way and all that. So what this world is all up for grabs. How it works is up for grabs. But we can measure water to be level, and we cannot measure ourselves to be spinning. 1,000 miles an hour, they say we should be spinning, but that cannot be measured. No science experiment can conclusively say we are moving.
Very interesting.
Have a good life.
Cheers, you too.
Good luck.
Thank you, enjoy.
All right. This guy's come back for a nibble. Hello, my friend. How can I help you today? I've got some flyers for you. I know this might seem a little amusing at first, but when you get down into the nitty-gritty, Truth is that you and I cannot prove that we live on a spinning rock. We
No,
can't.
that's right.
We
You
can't
think-
prove it.
Yeah,
We have to
and
believe it.
And you also can't prove any of this stuff, can you?
Which stuff?
What's
it's
written
not
in here?
spinning.
That it's not spinning? Well, the positive claim remains with this idea that it is. When your senses tell you you're not spinning. I mean, if you were sitting on the wheel of your car and it was moving, you'd know absolutely that it was spinning. So we have no evidence that we're spinning. So the positive claim remains with, prove to me that it's spinning. Prove to me that water is curving over anything other than, say, the lip of your glass, or it might run down off the edge of the glass, but it's going to pool. Initially, maybe a little bubble of pool, but once that pool settles with any mass, it's going to be level. That's what water is, level. That's why we say sea level. Topography of this country, you could go from the east coast to the west coast on a topographical map. You would rise up to about 600 meters at the highest point, and then you would settle back down on the west coast. So where's the curvature?
Can I ask you another question?
Please, I'm here for questions.
Do you believe in God?
I think there is a God, but I think that God...
That's crazy.
Yeah, okay.
That's flat Earth maybe, but God is absolutely crazy. Where's your evidence for that?
Do you believe that everything came from nothing? Big Bang?
I'm happy with that, yeah.
So that's crazy too. I can offer you that. Now, I'll tell you my personal experience as an atheist. Right? I was atheist up until age 47. Then I took something called dimethyltryptamine, which is ayahuasca. Have you heard of ayahuasca?
I have, yeah.
So I took this...
Huxley
Yeah, there you go. So I took this DMT in 2015, and it took me from an atheist to a knower that there's a higher something here. Call it God or whatever. You can call it a pencil. I don't care. And I'm sure that the higher self doesn't give a rat's backside what language we use. But the knowing that you are the Christ, rather than there's some other more important person out there than you, was central to my awakening, if you like. So yeah, for me, I had that personal experience, but I was atheist. My dying mother in 2011 could not get me to accept that there was a God. That's where I was, and just 4 years later, I'm presented with my own personal experience that goes, shit, there's a higher me, and beyond the higher me, there's probably something even greater, and it's all love. So I lost all fear of death, and I gave up on Darwin.
Have to wait till I have the same experience. So.
That's fair enough. I can't expect you to have that. But once you realize that the religions were designed to cheat us, well, you probably already do.
I agree with
You
that.
believe with that. Yeah, well, I was there for most of my adult life, that the religions are there to cheat us. Then when I look into NASA and realize that a lot of what I believed was belief based on what I'd seen on the Tell Vision. So it wasn't stuff that I can substantiate or you can prove to me and say, look, this is...
Vision.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
That's what it's there for. It's a powerful propaganda tool. And now they've got the smartphone in everybody's hand, and so
I
they
agree
can.
with a lot of what you're saying. Actually.
So they can use, for me, that people are losing faith in religion. So they gave us something else to believe in, the aliens and so on. And the guy Werner von Braun, who was the rocket scientist who did the Apollo missions, right? He was under Operation Paperclip, came from Germany, right? And his secretary said that they're going to pull off an alien deception. And on his tombstone is written Psalms 19:1, which is why I put it here.
Where all of this, so fine.
Yeah, this diagram. Where
Yeah,
does that
no,
come
but I'm so taking what that you don't believe the Earth is a spinning globe. That's fine. But I don't understand why this is more plausible. Why is this more plausible than that? I mean, this seems to come from nothing.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, there may be a nothingness at the start of everything. I have to accept that. Even in quantum physics, hey, there's this on-off thing. So it could have been nothing. But when you think in nature, what you find is fruit that are all mostly round. Watermelons and oranges and apples and so on, and mostly round. But the key is that the fruit is on the inside of the skin, not on the outside. So and all ancient cultures, by the way, most, the Incans, the Egyptians, they all depicted like this sky goddess Nut enclosing.
Stop there. That's not very convincing to me. Just because an apple has got that inside it, I don't see how you get from the journey of that to this picture.
Okay.
It just,
so when I took the DMT,
a step too far.
All right. Let me, if I can offer you this. I'm 55, and when I took the DMT at 47, I was a serious guy, a published author. I was in a war in a country called Angola. And I'm like on a book tour in South Africa, and this old friend offers me this DMT. Right? When I took the DMT, I was more awake and alert than at any other time in my life, and I could see everything in the space around me was simply light. It was just what seemed to be frequency vibrating into light. all the walls, the plants, the water, everything in that space. So I went after that to research for quite a few years how it could be an electromagnetic universe. And I think that we live inside an electromagnetic torus system. And you can see mainstream science, the primer fields is the best example I can give you. The primer field experiments done by David LaPointe, where they can create like an accretion disk in the center of two magnetic cups. And with enough electricity and these two magnets, which is L and Ma, magnetism, electromagnetism, in an ether, they can create like this accretion or creation disk.
Right,
So
but just to stop you again there, I mean, you're bombarding us with
sorry,
a lot of
a lot of
terms that we
information.
don't.
Well, that's why I offer you
wouldn't
this
say
slide.
this-
I have one question.
Go on.
Why do you think that DMT has legitimacy, and you having that experience then opens up this whole new world? How do you not know that was just a psychedelic? I can understand psychedelics giving you a certain experience,
yeah.
but how can you then tell that DMT is telling you the truth? How do you not know it's just a psychedelic experience?
That's a
This is all just
that's a great
your
question.
imagination
That's a great
from
question.
that.
Well, I had traveled a bit in America and Amsterdam and places like that. I've done some insane trips on mushrooms and things like that. But none of that ever got me to think anything other. I was
But
just agnostic
the
atheist.
DMT is very strong. It's known to be
Yeah.
a much stronger version of
Yeah.
all that. Hence why
Yeah.
you haven't experienced anything like that before. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's just way stronger than everything
Okay.
else.
Well, I mean, obviously, because I walked through that experience, it's very real to me. But
Yeah,
you
no, I
don't
can
need to
understand
you
that,
don't
yeah.
need to believe anything that I tell you. So, but if I can give you my testimony,
Yeah.
that the DMT is produced in your lungs and in your pineal gland, or it's contained in your pineal gland. And
Yeah.
the research is that this is like a pineal opening event that occurs. For me, it felt like I died. I lost all my family in the first 30 seconds. Everything that I cared about was ripped
It's all
away
very
from me.
interesting,
So
but
it was
to
like
me
a
this is,
near-death experience.
To me, this is like, I mean, we just seen another. So it's fine. I mean, this is what you.
Well, first, I wouldn't want you to get lost in this, but question the reality you've been given. That's what I would like you to take away from that.
What I think
because-
is interesting for me today is I'm just comparing this. We've also just been in the cathedral, right? So we've just been in the cathedral. We've
Yeah.
just seen this this exhibition on the Turin shroud.
Oh, Shroud of Turin.
Yeah.
And you go in there, and to me, this is a lot like a lot like this. There's people in that room who are, looking at this Turin shroud and looking at all these pictures of the kind of Jesus supposedly burnt on this piece of
Yeah.
linen, and I've got the same feeling there that they have no
Evidence for that. Well,
So
they claim to have
this
done
is the
some kind of
second-
carbon dating and some other DNA thing and so on. Because I used to watch all that stuff very
Yeah,
closely.
but then there's another sort of plaque on there saying that this carbon dating is a lot of very similar to this actually, that's not proven, and
Yes.
that all of this kind of thing. So
And
quite
but
interesting to see.
believers are looking for reification, aren't they? They're going to go, this is his shroud. This the same as that's why that NASA show us footage of them being in space and so on, because it reifies this idea that we've gone into
But you
space
see,
and
so
been on the
I'm
moon.
standing here, and I can't, with all due respect to you, I'm sort of thinking that, you're a lot like the people who believe in the Turin shroud, and there's loads of them in there, loads of them, and there's no kind of evidence that anyone's going to offer you that makes you feel any different.
Well, so this what I say the Earth looks like is hypothesis. Yes, but I used to be able to theorize about space being billions of miles and light years away and all of that sort of stuff. So I used to be allowed that, and the expansion of space and space-time being the blanket upon which all things are being drawn to each other or going around in these elliptoids and all this sort of stuff. I was allowed to say that and raise my children on that. But now I can't say, hey, hold on a minute, water's level, we need pressure, to have a pressure system we must have a container, and that we can't show that we're moving. So now that I've spent years since 2015 trying to review the science that I was taught, and I've been able to debunk pretty much all of it with my own personal experience. Everything else that's just, I see it on the Telline Vision. Did I give you my flyer?
Yeah,
No, I'll take one.
Take
Yeah.
the flyer.
Alright, nice to, good on you.
I'll
for,
shake your hand.
Yeah, good on you for.
My name is Dave.
For
Hey, having
saying
the
your message.
no,
good
trying
for
to
you.
free the mind, free us from enslavement. I won't even say it from wearing the nappy on the face. Hello, folks. All right. You haven't seen this before, or you have? Happy birthday,
No, I
by
was
the
just
way.
reading it. Oh, thank you.
You
Appreciate
like
that.
aeroplanes? I see you
I
got
do like
airplanes on your.
airplanes.
on your bag
I
there.
do, yeah, somewhat, yeah.
Air over plane. In fact, a friend of mine has. He's an airline pilot, and he's flat Earth. He says that we never make any allowance for curvature, and the what do they call it? The level thing, the horizon, artificial horizon, is basically what do you call it? A gyroscope. You know, and it'll show you the moment your plane is off level, but we keep our nose 1 or 2 degrees above level all the time throughout the duration of the flight. So we know that we're flying over a plane. We're not flying underneath something. We have to allow for this idea that the gravity is accounting for that and keeping the plane at a cruising altitude, even though it's going down or under or whatever. So yeah, there's a lot about the globe that I've believed it for most of my adult life. I've only been 8 years since I left the belief system. And now I go around telling people that, hey, we can't prove where we live, but what if we can show that there's no curvature over water, water's not bending like they say it is on the surface, and that there's no experiment that will show that we're moving or spinning or rotating.
I'm not scientific enough to understand it.
You absolutely are. But when you were 5, 6 years old, your teacher said to you, your senses are lying to you. You are moving. She didn't tell you you're moving at 1,000 miles an hour, which is what we're meant to be spinning at. But you're moving and you can't tell it. And water's curving, and what you see over there is explaining that. And it actually damages us when our senses are stolen from us at that age to say there's things that you
just
can't
assume
see.
things, don't you?
And you're going to have to trust the guy in the white lab coat. You know, you may have given up on the religious guys, but you're going to trust the guy in the white lab coat to tell you stuff that you can't test for yourself.
Yeah.
And then
I
they
think
do
the
the
real
moon
question
landings.
is, why should we believe you?
Don't believe me at all. Don't believe me, brother. But let me tell you that I know for sure that because I grew up by the sea. When I saw the formula that they claim we should be curving at, I was like, I grew up by the sea. I could see 10, 20 miles sometimes. And I'd see things at that range that I'm
Where are
not
you
meant
from?
to be able to see. I was
New
brought up in
Zealand?
Durban, in South Africa.
South Africa.
Born in Poole in Dorset, but raised there. And I know that we are not, if we were spinning, then when we fired long-range projectiles in Angolan War, I had to do national service. When we fired long-range projectiles, we'd have to make an allowance for that spin. They call it Coriolis force. That we have to make some allowance for that. So no, the evidence is with the spinning globe to say, if you're making this claim we can spin, prove it. Well, everything that we got, like when we take a camera up to 140,000, 120,000 feet, a weather balloon, all we see up there is flat and level. What we see up there is flat and level. When you put a fisheye lens on it, it's going to go up.
Cake
Oh well, happy birthday.
Thank
Take
you very
my
much.
fire,
Thank
though.
you. Thank you very much.
Keep an open mind. They're living.
Isn't it? I know. What are you doing here? Why are you not in Glastonbury? You're surely out of water here.
Out of water?
Well, what? What are you
They're all
saying?
converted
Doesn't
in
exist.
Glastonbury.
No, they're not.
No?
He was
No,
there the
they're
other
not.
week.
I was in Glastonbury last Sunday.
I saw you.
And you saw me there. And a month before that, and I have to say there might be some progress. There's more people, I think,
On
on
board.
board. Certainly since the last 3 years have gone down.
Yeah.
I looked it up because you were there and I drove past and I went, what's that all about? What's he doing? So I've been looking it up. Yeah, I'm fully on board. I believe you completely.
Oh, shake my hand! Wow, that's fantastic.
She's very easy to convince of any conspiracy.
Well, no, because
It's not
one
a
of those things.
conspiracy.
It's one of those things that you go, hold on a minute. I can't see water doing this. I cannot. And now, when you have the time, you can go and try and go and measure it, or go and make observations with a powerful
Exactly.
camera. And lots of friends
true.
I have done that.
Yeah.
I've done that, and we're like, no, the water's level. That's what your common sense tells you. You have to start making excuses. If the ship is going down to France, and then when you leave France, it seems like the ship is going down again. That doesn't make sense, other than it's an optical illusion.
Yeah.
It's things getting smaller, compressing, and so on, rather than it's gone over a curve. And if we can't measure curve, then perhaps it's just a trick of the eye.
Yeah.
Simon wants to know though, what difference will it make to his
Big
life?
question.
Yeah.
Big
How will
question.
it change?
Well,
what
for
I'm
me
doing?
personally, right, I was an atheist, and I was just saying to people before, I did DMT in 2015, and so that gave me like an insight into, wow, there's a God, or there's something higher going on
Yeah.
there, and I'm connected to
DMT
that.
is the one that's released before you die,
you
isn't
die.
it?
Yeah,
Into your
from
brain, the
your
chemical.
pineal-
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
The real ganja.
Yeah, so that was, for me, it was like a near-death experience, actually. I really felt like I was dying, I was losing my children and my life, and everything was being ripped from me in the first 30 seconds of the experience. And then it was loving, and it was, I learned all of this stuff in that time. But then I came back from that trip, and I was like, well, let me go and look back at this flat earth thing. This is 2015, and there were some videos about it and stuff like that. And I realized that, one, we are these divine emissaries of God, but I got that probably from the DMT. But when you put it into a flat earth cosmology, it's like, wow, everything is close. The sun, the Mars, Mercury, these are actually close inside of a enclosed system that was designed on purpose. And perhaps even by yourself or your higher self.
Well, maybe.
You know,
Your brain is such an amazing,
Well,
powerful
yeah.
thing. And,
So there's
and
less distance.
there's less distance to whatever God is, but there's
Yeah.
more intimacy, there's more micro and macro. It's like, okay,
yes.
I can
I
see
love
myself.
the whole macro,
I can see myself having a Venus and Mercury and Mars and how these energies can be affecting me on a day-to-day basis. And then when it comes to sovereignty, it's like, oh, hold on a minute. So there's this creation, and I and you are the creators here. We are meant to be the sovereign children of God, if you like, or the inheritors of the earth, as it says in some places. You know, we're genuinely meant to be that, but we've bought into Darwin. We've bought into, evolution and war with each other, and we need government to tell us what to think and do and how to breathe and all this sort of stuff, right?
Okay.
And so once you, for me anyway, once you start taking that journey, it does take years. I was 47, and so it's taking me a while to kind of really let that steep into my consciousness about, wow, man, I am, and that doesn't mean that I'm more special than anyone else, but I, like you, are the product of some intended, designed place. Not random happenstance, 4 billion years and all this, isn't that the story that we were told, but actually designed on purpose with perhaps as a school, or perhaps as a place for us to come and have an Eden experience or a hell experience, whatever.
So really, it's a key to understanding, having a deeper understanding of what's really going on. The flat Earth
and who you
idea
really are.
is really just a doorway.
Exactly.
Into
Exactly. That's exactly what I say. It's the doorway through which all truth must be distilled before you can really know what you're meant to know.
But I've got to go because my mum's wandered off.
Whatever it is you're good at, whether it's astrology or anything, to take it through that doorway, it still works, but it just works in a way that's far more intimate, far more
Interesting.
personal.
Well, thanks for the answer.
Good
Now
luck.
I feel
Cool.
fulfilled, happy now I know.
Cool. Well, then just
Good
let the
luck
work,
to
let it steep for yourself,
shall.
because I
I
can't
shall.
prove anything to you. You got to prove it to yourself.
No. I don't like proof
Prove it,
anyway.
yeah.
I don't need proof.
Yeah.
Where would it with faith? That's where I'm at.
Well, have a good one. All the best. Now, so creating a little bit of interest there, which is nice. We've got some flyers. Got some people here, they're going to find it hard to read. Yes, it's true, we can't prove we live on a spinning rock. NASA fakes space. They do, it's easy to prove. Never went to the moon. Never went to the moon. I try not to say anything about the face nappy thing, and I'm on Jason's channel here, so I really don't want to cause him any grief. I really appreciate him extending the kindness of using his channel for the day. Maybe tomorrow, actually. There's a certain Harry MacDonald coming into town, so let's see if we can. Hi friends, take a flyer. We can't prove we ever went to the moon.
We didn't go to the moon.
You know that.
Yeah.
And the International Space Station is fake. Why? Because they don't want us to know where God is within us.
Correct.
Yes. Ma'am, can I give you a flyer as well?
Mahalia, you need a flyer.
Yeah, I think you need a flyer too.
I need one.
Yeah. Yeah. Have a great life. Yeah.
Of course
You have
we
fun.
do.
Thank you. All right, share this out, guys. What are you doing? Are you giving me the thumbs up and giving us a share? Is there any other activism going on in the streets anywhere that you'd rather be watching? If not, then push Jason's channel out, and don't forget to look into Trinity 4 as well. Hey guys, take a flyer. Don't let the government keep tricking you about who you are. You are the center of creation. Yeah, not an evolved monkey. Check it out. Check it out. So I went for the reverse psychology thing, with this, I don't know. It's hard to get a beat on exactly how successful here the message is, but really want to try and catch people where the earth is not flat. because I have so many arguments. No, I have so many conversations with people. Oh, so why don't you fall off the edge? So I was trying to nullify that one, you know, and that's what that was. Some people reading the flyers. I need a drink of some water. That always goes level. Huge condolences to the Globebuster crew, and you know, credit to all those who go out and do something, whether it be online or in the street. That guy was quite insistent earlier on about this, you know, those numbers supporting. I hadn't heard that. I wonder if that's a Professor Dave moment of programmed conversation. I hadn't heard that before about the. You know, those numbers actually support and see. Yeah. I heard that they had a shroud of children thing going on here. There are some flat earthers for whom that would be relevant. I did wonder about that once upon a time, but it's hard to give any of that stuff credence at all now. Yes. Sub to my channel if you don't mind. 284. I will be back in a week on that channel, and it is. I'm trying to build it up after having the takedown a year ago. Yeah, so I'm hoping that I will be able to do something with Harry tomorrow. So this is just a little warm up, and if I am doing something with Harry, it'll have to be through this medium. Very posh. Can I offer you a fly?
No.
Some information?
No, definitely not.
Okay, that sounds like a Globe response. Definitely not. I do not want to be informed. I'd rather remain nescient. I'd rather remain a globalist. You may not have seen this part of this flyer. So I just did it with these two columns here. Equal inheritor of the earth. And a bit of a pop. say hello to the chat. Night Adam. Skeptic. Mojo. Hey Ray. Found your way here, I think. Quite quiet here, but I'll make a little bit of hay here. Oh, cool. You're in Somerset, you come. Yeah, well, please do, actually. I could do with. I had, last time I was in this town, I met some great wokey, people who know all of this, and some information for you, bro.
Hi there.
Free your mind, man. You don't live on a spinning ball.
I have mine.
You have mine?
Yeah.
You think you evolved from apes? No. You're created, man. You're the creator. It's Francois Lafranci here. Francois Lagrange. He's the guy who gave me a car and a few months accommodation in South Africa. And his brother lent me a car as well. So between them, him and his brother, we had about 4, maybe 5 months of, 6 months of, maybe 7 months of car use, you know, until we left South Africa. So Francois was a big help in making South Africa work. So what are you doing, brother? Props there. I felt as though he was a little condescending at the end there. I assume you're not talking about me, Jason. No, Howard Moore, I'm sure this guy believes what he's saying, that DMT doesn't make planet Earth a flat plane. I agree with you, that didn't make it a flat plane, it wasn't for me. But I did go and research flat Earth theory. I didn't agree with everything that I found there, but I certainly discovered that I could only believe in the globe if I had Cox in my mouth, Brian Cox, which is what most globalists love. A good bit of Brian Cox at the weekend, eh? Or they'll take it from Neil deGrasse or Tyson. Some information, guys. We don't live on a spinning globe. We've been lied to about where we live and who we are. We're not evolved apes. We are the center of creation. It's a very quiet place here, so you're unlikely to get me to go super loud, or it's probably not going to happen. The last time that happened was Salisbury, a month ago maybe. So, just so you know. But there will be time when I can get loud again. And hopefully I'll be back in Speaker's Corner. I was there a few weeks ago. It was a bit crap weather-wise. So we didn't get the turnout that I was hoping for, both in terms of the flat Earth community and just general passers-by. Even Mark Sargent had given me a shout-out for that Sunday, but no one turned up. Hopefully in time it'll be easier. It's uncomfortable for people to kind of come out and do this, I think, to be fair. We've got to do our bit where we can, when we can. You know, Bob Nodell, he did more than his bit there. Wow, he put everything into that. I think that the amount of effort he put in might have had a bearing on things for him. Guys, I've got some information for you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We've been lied to about where we live and who we are. It's easy to prove we never went to the moon. It's easy to prove the International Space Station is all Hollywood, CGI, and fake. I can always tell by the smile when someone goes, "No, I know more than you." What's the formula for the curvature of Earth? No. What speed are we rotating? You don't know. Earth is flat, not a spinning ball. We've been lied to about where we live and who we are. Can you handle it? We've never been to space. Astronauts are fake. We cannot get to outer space. Outer space is Disney. This is the original flyer from the 2018 tour. If you're a Jason Disbury subscriber, then I suspect you may have seen this back in the day. Well, I know he's taken some new subscribers. Hello, my friend. Please do share that as widely as you can. It doesn't matter how hard you laugh.
I'm not laughing.
Good. Good. Do you
I'm not
know?
saying I agree with you, but
Yeah.
I'm interested.
Oh, good. Well, I've got information if you're interested. See that a photo? I love having the photo taken of the stuff, and I just want it to be shared as widely as possible. But yeah, this guy that was talking about this, that was fascinating. You know, he's not going to stop. He just wanted to, you know, Earth is flat, not a globe. Can't be living on the side of a ball. There's no evidence of that. Oh, then gravity. That's all we need to say, gravity. Must be hard to do activism on my own. Iron Maiden, Liz. Yeah, thanks. Hi guys, I've got information. We've been lied to about who we are, where we are.
Have a great time, but
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you. People would rather believe in this crap. But you know what? We're going to create this, you know, because we believe, you know, these youngsters that are being brought up with all the children's clothes, have all got space and all that sort of stuff. Hi guys, I got some information. We've been lied to about where we live, who we are. Earth is not a spinning rock, and we've never been to the moon.
Thanks.
You're welcome. I'm a bit zoomed in there. Folks, we've been lied to about where we live, who we are. We don't live on a spinning rock, we don't evolve from eggs. God is in you, not in some building or in some icon. Icon, even Jesus, like do not take icons, you know. That's,
I would like to ask you a question, but not.
okay. Well, I'm
not to be
filming myself
filmed or-
at the moment.
Oh, I see.
So
okay.
you can go ask ahead.
Okay. I've been to Australia, flown to Australia, and I've also flown to the United States. And I know that people have flown from Australia to the United States. So how do you explain that that's possible if the Earth is flat? I've never asked anyone, so I simply don't understand.
I mean, if we had to take a hot air balloon from Wales to Glastonbury,
Yeah.
you know that would be essentially a flat journey, right?
Okay, more or less.
You know, obviously the hills might go up and
Yeah,
down
yeah.
and our altitude might change, but essentially we're sort of traveling laterally over the plane of the Earth.
Yeah.
So that's really all a plane is doing, is flying laterally over the plane of the Earth. And just because the distance is 100 or 1,000 times further than that distance I just described, doesn't then necessitate it has to be a globe. It could equally.
Okay, but for
more
it to be
easily
flat,
flat.
for it to be on two dimensions, the distances would have to be proportionately greater to get between these places. You know what I mean? If it's flat, then the distances at the centre are relatively small, but you'd have to fly for an immense, unimaginable time to reach somewhere out here.
Well, you
so
do.
if you
Don't you think that the Australia flights are very long? I mean, they are extremely long flights.
Sure, but they're not proportionately long as they would have to be if it was all on two dimensions.
Not really. I can show you the flat Earth conception of what the map looks like, and all these flights can be mapped on that same map. it's the United Nations logo, and it's like a projection of what a globe might look like on a flat Earth. And
Sure. I've seen that
when
projection.
we look at these flights, and say the flight from Johannesburg to London, I've flown that one many times. Aside from it's quarter of the way around the globe, so my perpendicular changes by 90 degrees, and I never feel it, and I can't measure it. There's a flight from Johannesburg now to South America.
Yes.
Now, if you take a string and measure that flight as the plane would fly over the globe, if you use a globe, and then you take the same string and fly it to South America, you'll find that the distance is about the same according to the string. But the flight is 5 times longer to the one in South America. So there are questions. There's a guy who wrote a book on 15 emergency landings that prove Earth is not a globe. And sometimes when someone dies or gives birth on a plane, they do an emergency landing wherever they happen to be, as close as they can. And sometimes they've done landings where it makes no sense on the globe. It'd be like, that's 1,000 miles off your course. Why would you have gone a dog's leg up there? But when you see that plot on a flat Earth conception of what the map looks like, it's still a straight line. So no, it actually, things work absolutely fine on the flat Earth. And just like we can circumnavigate England, we can circumnavigate the globe without it needing to be a ball.
Okay, so second question. I'll have to think about what you're saying and have to look again at the map. But okay, second question is, if the Earth is flat, then there's an edge to it. Where is that edge, and what happens at the edge?
Okay. Well, we think that our systems might break down at whatever the edge is. In a flat Earth conception, typically we are theorizing that there is this ice ring around us. So just like a lake has a ring of dirt around it and to contain that lake, well, we have an ice wall around us, and the Antarctic mountains are actually very high. So there is this
But you can cross them and get to the other side and get to the ocean. It's not the end.
Well, this is the weird thing, is that we've never flown under Antarctica and come out at 180 degrees opposite side. We've never done that. There's no flight or anything that shows us doing that. In fact, flying from Australia to South America would make a lot more sense to go under the ball than it does to take the flight routes that they take. So there's a lot of things. Now,
is it not that it's just riskier to fly over Antarctica because it's so much colder, the weather's so much worse?
But at 50,000
you wouldn't want to
or
take the risk.
40,000 feet, that's really not a factor. The planes are flying at minus 50 degrees Celsius. And at that altitude, you would think that because we live on a system where there's a troposphere and all these different spheres, if you like a gobstopper, then there would be they would be able to fly inside of that particular band and fly, no problem. So that is one of the excuses that's mooted, but even still, you should be able to say that we've at least taken some hardy craft and we've taken it out at 180 degrees from the place you came in. I didn't know this until I started researching Flat Earth, is that there was an Antarctic Treaty signed in 1957.
That's right, yes.
I think it's 57, and it was just after the Admiral Byrd stopped flying from, stopped his expeditions in the South Pole, in the Antarctic region. He spent about 15 years there with a battle group, an aircraft carrier and a whole bunch of ships, and the Americans were funding him to search around as much as he wants. He comes back and goes on TV and says, I found a land bigger than America. I found all the resources that would last humanity for eons. And the next year, after saying that, it's all locked down. We can't go down there except for 1 or 2 little pinpoints that we're able to go and visit on a little guided tour. But we don't mine down there. We can't travel down there freely. Anything below the 60th parallel needs to be controlled by government resources. So to know what the edge is. But now let me just get back to you, the edge question, because everybody thinks the flat Earth is like a pizza or a pancake floating in space. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. What it is that space as we know is fake. Outer space as we know cannot be substantiated or proven. That all the stars, the lights, the energies that we see are inside of an egg or inside of a cosmic bubble. I call it like an orange. I say that we live inside of an orange, and in the center of the orange, where the pips are, that's where there's enough matter or material to create continents, the land masses that we stand on. And the same applies at the microcosmic level, which is you. You have an electromagnetic signature, which is far greater than this physical avatar that I see. And this physical avatar that I see is the seed in the center of the electromagnetic you. And the same is true of the macrocosm. But just like in the macrocosm, there are these wandering stars, Venus, Mercury, Mars. They are replicated in you too. you have these energy centers in yourself, which are mimic or are a micro of that macro that we see out there. So all of the universe occurs inside of this bubble. But where we stand, the place that we walk on, is a plane within that space.
Okay. Again, I have to think about
But there's no, if you think about it, I say to people, think if you can, as hard as you can, and I have, can you name a single fruit or single thing in nature that comes without a skin or grows its fruit on the outside of the skin? And of course the answer is no. Everything requires containment. Everything requires a skin, a bark, a shell, a peel. So if that be the case, then why is this electromagnetic Earth as a sort of enclosed system not also possible when it must be enclosed, it must be contained. For us to have gas pressure, thermodynamics demands that you enclose something to have gas pressure, rather than just gravity holds the vacuum of space off from just ripping away our atmosphere. So no, I think that in nature we see a lot of the answers, but we've been tricked to thinking we're on the outside of the orange rather than on the inside where all the fruit should be.
Interesting. I'm no specialist. I'm very sceptical about all the scientific models about everything because it just represents an attempt to understand from a particular perspective. But I don't know. Anyway, I just leave that. Last question is okay. So when you're flying at altitude, you can see the curvature of the Earth. So what's that?
Yeah, that's compression of your vision. So your vision inscribes a circle. If you look at 100 miles into the distance from the plane and you sort of turn left and right, then everywhere that you look is actually a circle at 100 miles. Then we get moisture in the lower atmosphere or density of moisture in the lower atmosphere, which causes a bending of light. So we know that can possibly what's being explained. One of my subscribers is an airline pilot who worked for an Australian airline for many years. And I know other pilots who've also said, there's no curvature, we make no allowance for that. But when you look out the side window, you're getting a very small view through perspex glasses, 3 panes, I think, of glass and plastic. One of them is actually buckled because it comes under pressure as the cabin is under pressure. So what you're doing is looking through, I think, a convex lens. The ball of your eye is a convex lens too. So this convexity creates this idea that it's round. But I'll show you here. I've got a photograph from 120,000 feet. Even Neil deGrasse Tyson, one of the most high priests of science, he'll tell you that from an airplane you're not high enough to see the curvature of space. So this photograph I have over here is 120,000 feet. This is 120,000 feet with a weather balloon. And if you don't allow for the camera to kind of go up and down like this and create that bending as it sometimes does, it'll bend the horizon up and down, or they use a fisheye lens typically to create that sense that it's all going round. What we see is a continuation of this level. When I was a kid, I went in the cockpit of a plane and I could see a long way in front of me, and everything just looked flat, like a blanket of cloud, flat cloud. Now we're flying flat, and then in 5 minutes time, if I look as far as my eyes can see, we're still flying flat. So no, the idea that we're seeing curvature from space is one of those from a plane is one of those things that they allow people to believe without explaining how compression works.
Okay, now you've just raised another issue, so I will ask a supplementary question if I may.
You may.
You refer to they, so clearly the implication is that this received view is put out by a certain group of people who presumably be in a position to know that it's not true.
Yeah.
So,
small group, yes.
Who are they and why would they be doing it?
I say that it's firstly that all roads lead to Rome. So just in the same way as religions, competing religions have been used to control the masses, those same entities have lost their grip on religion perhaps, so they've given us other things to control and constrain. Why? To limit you, to minimize who and what you might well be.
Okay, who are these entities?
Well, that's all speculation. I don't know. I know that what we see. Well, like for example, the prime ministers and those sorts of things. Those are public relations arms of the greater system. Some people say
you don't want to use the C word, but I get what you mean. Yes.
Yeah. And so when we see these people, we also see bankers sitting behind them sometimes, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and so on. But these two may be peons. They may just be ants of the system who have been selected over the centuries, their families and their bloodlines, to play a particular role.
So there's someone behind them.
There's someone behind them. It might be the little man like Dorothy. It might just be a little man pulling the strings. But it may be, there's a couple of ways of looking at it. It's all Satan. It's all Satan's world, and he's created this hell that we've got to find our way through. Or it's like this is a Disneyland for your soul. And to come and have an experience of and see whether or not you get caught up in the deadly sins and you get lost in laziness and you just get told what you eat and and believe and so on, and you lose way. Because for me, as a former atheist and a believer in all the Darwinist stuff, I just thought we were not significant, we were not important, and our life experience was just today, gone tomorrow. But as someone who knows this now, I realize that I'm part of something eternal, something magnificent, something absolutely wonderful. So do I get caught up in their storylines and raise children to think that they just evolved from apes? Or do I say, no, you are the reason, you are the center of creation, the pinnacle of the pyramid. It should center on you, not you're having to ask permission if you can go to the shops, or you're having to be told that you're, like me, I had to do national service in South Africa, and go and be cannon fodder. You wouldn't do that sort of stuff if you knew, you wouldn't play along with the game. If you knew that, wow, this is really about me. And not to say it's about some guy called Jesus, it's to say that the guy called Jesus was trying to say that you are the creation, you are God's intention. You came here with the gift was given to you of this life with a much higher intention than simply, your parents got together after a boozy night in the pub kind of thing. Well, no, you're meant to be.
Was there a particular tipping point in your life, a particular turning point where you stopped believing what you were told and came to a different understanding?
Yeah, I was a little skeptical of the moon landings, but I kind of went along with it for most of my adult life. I wrote a book about my time in the Angolan War. In 2014, I published it, and it brought me information that started to kind of rattle my world. And one guy came to me at a book launch and said, I was in intelligence, and I know that the Americans and the Russians were meeting with the Angolans and South Africans and Cubans in a hotel room in Luanda, the capital, to talk about where your battles would be commencing.
I don't doubt it for a minute.
And that, I did at the time. I'll be honest, I did at the time. And then I started finding stuff
Nothing's
about
what it seems.
Gulf of Tonkin and 9/11 and all of these sort of things. Big dominoes started to fall in my world. And then while I was on a book tour in 2015 in Johannesburg, an old friend of mine offered me some of this DMT, the dimethyltryptamine, which is ayahuasca. And I smoked it. It was a frightful experience, but I also learned so much about, wow, there is a higher. So I went in an atheist, came out and know that there's a source here, and I'm connected to it. We are all connected to it, and it's a beautiful thing. This world is just like I said, possibly like a school. But that was a big moment for me. Was that 9/11 and then this DMT, which at the age of 47 to kind of get shown something that I knew intellectually that I'd never heard before, that had been like, this is a game changer for me. And then I went back and looked at the flat earth theory again, because I was like, okay, shit, if they've lied about all of this stuff, about the electromagnetic nature of our world, because this is what I saw. I saw that we are connected to a higher source, and that was unequivocal to me. And I was like, how is it that I got to be an atheist? What is it that religion did to me that made me want to push it all away? And I was much more excited by the idea that science was going to find life on Mars and prove that this is how we came, panspermia or whatever, this is how we came to be here, and so on. Slime eventually came off another planet, landed in the water here, and then eventually turned into a fish, and then came onto the land, and all of that. I believed that. So then I went and looked at flat Earth, and I was like, okay, hold on a minute. I can't prove, like with this formula, I can't prove there's any curvature over water. And my life experience is that, I might have also said the same thing you did. I think I can see the curvature from the plane. But I'd never really given it enough thought to go, hold on, how do I know that? How do I test that? And I realized that there was experiments done in the 1800s that they were trying to prove that we were living on a spinning globe, and they failed. Aries failure and the Sagnatic experiments and interferometer, all the interferometer work they were doing in the late 1800s, early 1900s. The best scientists in the world, France and England, they could not prove that we were moving. And Einstein himself has said there's no earthbound experiment that will prove that we are moving. So you come across this stuff and you go, okay, shit, hold on. Then is it us that is moving, you know? And it starts to really unseat your view of what.
So do you see this as the issue that kind of leads people into dismantling the received worldview about everything?
Yeah, I mean, I see this as a gateway truth, a gateway drug into the truth, but the dismantling part, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not convinced that the end goal is to dismantle everything as it is. I think that these cities, that these governments, that these controllers have such a grip on the majority of people that it may never be that. And quite honestly, I use the example of the zoo. If you've raised animals in a zoo for 3 or 4 generations, if you just took the gates away from the zoo, they wouldn't know what to do.
No, I'm not necessarily implying that this is for everyone. I'm just thinking in terms of the people who would be drawn to this sort of thing. I'm going to need to go, but may I?
Please take my flight.
Yeah, no, fascinating. I mean, I don't know what to make of what you're saying. I need to think about it. But I am convinced.
There are resources.
Yeah, I am convinced in many other areas that what we were told about things is absolutely not true, and that most things are the exact opposite of the 180-degree thing, the word of inversion. I've certainly come to that view in the last few years.
Good.
I'm not sure what I make of all this flat earth stuff.
Well, they
seems very implausible to me, but nonetheless, it doesn't matter. Thank you for the time.
They censor the hell out of me, and I lost my last YouTube channel because of censorship.
Oh yeah, no, you're not allowed to say anything against the received view of things.
No. And particularly what's gone on over the last 3 years.
Absolutely, this has been the turning point.
Good. A lot of people have come to me and said, you know what, it was that got me to look again at this, because everybody ridicules flat Earth, and that's by design.
Well, I'm discovering more and more people who are disbelieving the conventional narrative about lots of things, and may never touch this, and I may never touch this either, but there are other things that are causing them to rethink what we're told, and I'm fascinated in that as a phenomenon.
Yeah.
That suddenly there are lots of people, including people whom I would never have expected to be going that route, just saying, actually, I don't believe what we're being told.
So I was in South Africa for a year during one of the lockdowns, and the Africans really like to hear this message, which is that, wow, so what do you do with this knowledge?
Yeah.
You know, do you stand at 10 Downing Street and campaign, or do you go out, and return more towards a natural way of living? Because it seems to me that the system is trying to push us into a digital AI type paradigm.
Yeah.
And so you can go along with that, fine, but you could say, heck, I see that coming, I see the net closing, so I'm going to hop out and go back to the land the way that nature intended, which is plant an orchard and plant, do things with your neighbors that are going to mean you can keep each other going, rather than relying on the supply chain, which may or may not go away, but that supply chain has been tainted with all sorts of chemicals and toxins and whatnot. So the more you can return to nature, I think the better. And just a day in the forest makes you feel a lot better than a day around a forest of Wi-Fi signals, right?
Yeah.
So that seems to me what you do with this knowledge is that how do I empower myself so that I no longer, it might take years, but that I'm no longer playing for the system. I'm propping the system up with my taxes, with the job that I used to work for the government in Westminster. I could never do that again.
No, of course not. No, once you pass through that door, you can't go back the other way.
So it's about freeing yourself. It's about personal liberation, throwing off the shackles of,
and talking to other people.
Yeah, and becoming and realizing that, oh my gosh, we are God's expression. We are the creations. There is nothing higher here than us, and we should be able to love with each other and commune. When you travel around the world, I'm sure you have, you meet people from different parts of the world who just want to be family and not go to war with each other. And that's what they have. They have us at war with each other, men against women, people transgender against this or whatever, all these sorts of little, divisive camps of squabbling and so on, when we come from the same source, and we should be kind of working towards a common goal. But you divide and conquer. They've weakened us through division, through countries and nationality, and impoverishing this part of the world, and feeding that part up a little bit too much. And so it's a grand scheme, a grand trick. But once you see it, you go, okay, how in your own personal experience, I can't tell you what that's going to be, but in your own personal experience, how do I seek my own liberation, mind, body, and soul? Because I think the soul is the thing that they're after. or the spirit, or whatever, however you see that trinity.
Oh, that was so awkward.
Because once I have your mind, once I have you walking down the street with my phone in your hand, eating my food and turning up for work when I say, rather than being creative in your own way, then I've got you for life, and I'll give you a few years to play golf with you.
World of Zombies.
Yes.
That's why there are so many zombie movies, because it expresses the zeitgeist, doesn't it?
Yes. And we are that, and we are naturally born sheep in a way. So, how do you manage your own flock, your own sheep and your own goats, and walk the best way? And it is about doing the best you can, do no harm, and all those sorts of things. So we want to live in a world that is good and so on. But some ancient writers talked about a bifurcation of the human story. That there would be a fork in the road. And some would go towards the AI, sort of more mechanized system, and the others would go back to a more natural way of living. And that's the option I choose for myself.
I think the mechanized system will actually break down because it won't work. They can't control it. It's beyond control. The more complicated they make it, the more it's going to run away from them.
Eventually,
so
that's what always happens.
actually, it doesn't need to be brought down. It will just collapse under the weight of its own effort. So yeah, I'm an optimist. Exactly, I'm an optimist about it.
But when it does crash,
there needs to be something else.
Then what have you got on your smorgasbord of options to keep thriving in that situation? So it may be 5 years, it may be 50 years, it may be longer. I don't know, but I'm saying to be prepared for that possibility, i.e. you're growing some of your own food. Yes, you may need to scale it up if all the shops went, and it was only local produce that you could get and so on. But if there's a banking crash to come, and there's a lot of instability, because people, I think, are going to find out that the last 3 years is causing a lot more harm than the original story that they told us.
Oh yeah.
Needle damage is big. And I think people are going to find out more and more.
Yeah.
And that's going to lead to some sort of
the
uprising.
damage here as well. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
So
thank you very much.
I've enjoyed chatting with you. My name is Dave.
Dave. I'm David.
Well, I'm
or
David.
I'm sometimes Dave.
I'm David too, but according to my mother. But David, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Right. Well, nice to meet you,
Interesting.
David.
No, I just find since I opened up to different ways of saying things, and then decided to start talking to people, actually I'm finding people. And that's why I've stopped to talk, because I'm just fascinated in this whole phenomenon of people pushing back.
I appreciate that. Well, I apologise for my early comment. I get a lot of people sneering at me. But I appreciate your intelligent questioning, and hopefully the journey. It took me a while, and I had to do a lot of my own research.
Well, and this may or may not be part of my journey, but I think there are overlaps, and that's the important thing. So thank you very much.
Have a great life.
Yeah, and you too.
Yeah.
So you based locally?
I'm just staying, not far away in Shepton Mallet.
Okay.
Near Shepton Mallet at the moment. My journey took me from a home to homeless 3.5 years ago. So my wife, child, and I, and my older son, currently, we found alternative ways of surviving over the last few years. And so at the moment we're staying in Shepton Mallet, looking after someone's dogs, house sitting for them. And we'll be in Western Supermare at the end of the month for 3 weeks. So I met some ladies in Glastonbury last weekend who they're flat earthers, and they live in Western. So I'm going to probably do some street activism there as well. So
good talking to you, Dave.
All the best.
Take care. Bye bye.
Well, that's nice of you guys to stop by. That was a good conversation with David. It's nice that people have got an open mind like that. It doesn't always play out like that. Thanks for the thumbs up, by the way. I'll offer you a flyer, some information.
No, thank you.
Some information?
No, thanks.
No? It's quieting down here at the moment, so there's not a lot of activity, but that was a great conversation, don't you think? I really like that. Brian, the Czech business needs to take you guys to space. Well, I think they've never really been to space, even the Blue, what do they call them? Blue Origin. they've never really been to space. You know, the Richard Branson thing. By the way, Brian, I was watching Branson in the early years, hoping that he would go to space. You know, it was only since 2015 that I realized I'd been lied to about the whole globe and what gravity can do and that sort of thing. So, you know, and I thought Branson would do it actually. And then when you really critically, you know, once you've taken the gobbledygook, when you critically analyze what they did on the Virgin Galactic business, is they're taking them up on a parabola. Really, it's just a souped-up version of what NASA do in 747. They can hold that parabola for a few minutes, and it gives them, it seems, 5 minutes of airtime where they're sort of so-called floating, but that's because they've gone up super high and they're just falling super long. So this may be hard for you to realize, but the truth is that you can't prove you live on a globe. You need government, which NASA is. Some people don't like to admit that, but that's government, to tell you where you live. And cocks, like I said earlier on. People love cocks. Brian Cox, I'm talking about. So, you know, the idea that we know where we are is something that you have to be willing to be humble enough to say, no, we don't actually know where we are. We don't know what's outside of our bubble. We do not know what's outside of our bubble. We've never left it. Not as far as our modern history is saying. You know, and spinning, and you can't prove spinning, bro. You cannot prove spinning, but I can see that now, you know, it makes absolute sense to me that the same patterns of stars, like that guy earlier on, I might not be absolutely right on what lines up with Giza, but apparently the same stars have been lining up with Giza for, and we know that, man. You don't even need, because there's the precession of the equinoxes, the 26,000 year wheels, then it does mean that there are some variations over the thousands of years, but for it to be the same kind of same suspects, you know, the same old suspects, year after year, century after century, they're still there, just flying around. They happen to be 1 billion light years away, and so they had to travel, in order to kind of still be where they were, they had to travel so far. They're so far and so fast, but everything just perfectly seems to move at all its different speeds so that you never get the parallax. Parallax is a killer for your globe. Parallax is a killer for stars staying in the same place. It's hard to accept. I know. Oh, Squirrel Sniper, don't you want to stop by, man? I could do a little bit of that 420 action, I'll be honest. Sometimes when you're in some of the conversations, it's like, okay, I could do a little something right now. Hey, Arwen. Nice to see you. This show is still going, so this show is still going. Trolls still calling you. Well, you know what? That's one of the things that I find hardest on the online thing. And of course, if you're over the target, like Bob Glowbusters was, he got more than his fair share of trolls, and he was willing to take them on, you know. Well, because the guy had a lot of courage. But the problem with taking these guys on is that it's like the dawn of the dead. I learned that in 2015, 16. I was like, you know what, I can go into chat rooms for the rest of my life, and I will have drooling ball believers with cocks, you know, ringing in their ears. I'll have these guys come at me for time eternal. Hi guys, can I give you a flyer?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Cool. Congratulations, I see you carrying another third one.
Another boy.
Awesome. Wow, 3 boys.
Yeah.
Good Lord. That's good work. Well done. So I've got a 5-year-old, just about to turn 6-year-old son. And my oldest son is 21 and my daughter is 23 now. My older children are raised on the idea that we evolved from apes and that the Big Bang was real. Now with this younger son, I say to him, none of that stuff we can prove. What we can prove is that water is level when it's at rest. And it doesn't matter how small or large, aside from a teardrop, but it doesn't matter how small or large the pool, the lake, the bath, any of these things, is the water is always going to be level. So if water physically acts like that to be level, can we measure it ever curving to create a ball, to form a ball? And the truth is, we cannot. We try to measure that curvature over water, and we find that there is none. We try to measure the speed or the rotation of our globe, and we find that we cannot. Even Einstein said there's no experiment we can do on the Earth that will prove that we are spinning. And in the 1800s, before this science was buried, the best science minds in the world were trying to make experiments that would prove whether it was us that was moving or it was the lights in the sky that were moving. And it came back inconclusive, or in the case of Airy's failure, he was the astronomer royal back in the mid-1800s, it proved that it seemed that the stars are moving and not us. And your sensors say we're not moving. So it's only the clouds are moving or the stars are moving, and you can see that, but it doesn't make you feel like I'm moving. See? So we can't prove that we're moving, and we can't prove that water is curving. So we started to question whether it's possible for us to even live on a ball at all, walk underneath a ball, ships to sail, and all these sorts of things that really don't make sense when you take a globe and you stick things like a ship and a plane and people upside down in Australia or whatever. It's like, okay, they're only not falling off because of a theory called gravity. So that's a theory. What if it's all flat and you need no theory, that there is only one up and one down, and hot air rises, cold air drops, light gases go up, heavy things that are more dense than the air fall. The football or the floaty duck or whatever is only going to fall as far as the level of the water. And there, because of its buoyancy, it's not going to get drawn down any deeper because it is more buoyant than the medium that it is sitting upon. And we can do that with all sorts of liquids and different materials where they will float on each other depending on the buoyancy and the density of those two factors. So why I like to tell people about this is because if it's true that they lied about the whole heliocentric model, it means that the sun is small and the Earth is the most significant thing here. And if that's true, then it was probably created. Like, they don't want us to believe that it was created. But it wasn't created so that the religions could own it, but it was created so that you and your children could be the inheritors of the Earth. That we could be like the sovereign, divine expression of God, or whatever God is, the creator. We're meant to be that, not these slaves that have to pay up all of our time. You know, you work 2 days a week to pay tax, just to pay tax.
2 days?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot, and that's a low tax, because you pay tax on your income and you pay tax on everything you buy. And then every time you make a little mistake, you get penalized more taxes. You know, go a little bit too fast, or you park your car a little bit too long. Now, there's actually some more, you know, and I wouldn't be able to do that to you if you realize that it's the government that works for you and not that you work for the government. You want to go home? What happened to his eyes?
It's got a sty.
Yeah, I've researched lots of flat Earth theory, so I know about the experiments they've done in, I don't know what century it was, but with the flag and the boats.
Oh yeah,
so
the Bedford levels.
Yeah. And
That was
I'm completely open to it, and you know, if they're lying about this, what else are they lying about? Pretty much everything else.
Yes.
So
sure, pretty much everything else, and it comes back to you. You know, that it's like they're lying to deceive each of us.
Yeah. And then there's a whole thing about, are we in a simulation? Do you know much about this?
Yes.
And have you researched much into Mandela effects?
Yes.
Yeah. So they're pretty crazy.
Yeah. I've got a friend who's watching this right now. His name's Brian Stable. He's like huge in the Mandela effect. He's flat Earth, of course, but he's huge in the Mandela effect. So you've seen it? You've experienced Mandela?
Yeah,
I
for sure.
haven't yet. But I'm waiting for you to show
Yeah. Well, there's loads of them, and they're cropping up all the time. So you know,
2 or more gathered.
I'm completely open to. I don't really believe anything anymore. I'm just completely open to everything. So,
awesome. Well, if you're into Mandela, if you're willing to see that, have you looked at Tartaria, mud flood, these topics?
No.
Okay. So when we look around at our ancient buildings, just like this cathedral here, we find that the story about who built them,
how they were
built, doesn't add up. So we see similar architecture across the plane, across the world. So we wonder that there wasn't a higher culture previously.
Ones that are a lot taller than us as well.
Taller, and perhaps had skills or abilities that we don't have today.
Like moving large
stones
using
sound.
sort of sounds. Yeah.
Yeah, changing the frequency of something so as to change its properties. Yeah, all of this stuff is possible. And of course, in the simulation or in an electromagnetic theory, then it's possible to have Mandela effect, because it is possible to rewrite or shape something, because it's really not material in the way that we think it is. It's just light, it's code. So that can be recoded. What I don't like about the simulation theory is that first, Elon Musk says simulation theory, and of course anything that comes out of his mouth has to be taken as possibly inverted. But also that it somehow demeans a creator with an intention. It's almost like there's some guy in a back room with a computer program and he's running that program to make us believe we're in this sort of thing. I think that our experience is real, and that how we conduct ourselves matters. So I feel that. So in a simulation, you could almost be Grand Theft Auto and go, you know what, none of it matters. We can just go be gangsters, you know? That's my problem with simulation theory. However, I see this as an electromagnetic realm. So in a way, it is a simulation that your brain is decoding as color and texture and solidity, etc.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to research. I see. What you've got? But what's this? What's your head?
Oh well, so I mean, No, that's to do with how data travels on Earth. You see, people all believe in satellites, that there's all these satellites in space. Whereas it turns out that the data industry admit that 99% of data goes on cables. There's only a very small amount of it that goes on through the towers. Now, the towers, people say, is how would my sat-nav work if it wasn't for triangulation or satellites? Well, it's triangulation of towers. That is how your phone determines where you are. And once you go 5 miles or 10 miles out of town and you're away from the towers, all of a sudden your signal becomes very patchy, and sometimes you can't get a signal at all.
Which would be the case if
it was all top down. You can go into a valley, not far from town, and then all of a sudden you've got a signal. Why? Because you're out of sight or line of sight of the tower. So that's really one of those things that most people, because when you Google satellites in space, you discover that they're all cartoons. There's no photos of Tim Peake going, oh look, we just launched the satellite, here it is, here's 10 shots of it kind of going away from the spacecraft. No, they never do that. It's all cartoon. So we know that there are devices they can float on helium balloons for months at a time and use those as a sat phone, and that there are some satellites, but they're satelloons, and they can put receivers and senders at, let's say 20 miles, but not much higher than that, because after that, you need a really powerful signal to go much further than that. So they can bounce signals around from in the sky and use balloons for that. They're not satellites. They're not satellites. I'd love to share a little something with you guys, but you'll have to go and research this yourself. To do with what's happening with your son's eyes, is that you can, your amniotic fluid is 70% urine. Most of your amniotic fluid is urine, and so our skin grows in urine, and our internal organs all grow in this urine. So people who talk on urine therapy would say you could take your child's a little bit of his urine and dab it on his eyes, and his body will naturally will do the repair work for you.
Yeah, I've heard that with like people allergic to bee sting and stuff, and they can take a small amount of urine after the bee sting and
snake bite, same. Snake bite, it'll give you the anti-venom. So I thought I felt compelled to share that with you, because it's worth researching. My little son, he got stung by a jellyfish in Spain last year, and he'd heard me talk enough about this to go, get me a cup so I can pee in it. He's only 5 at the time. Get me a cup so I can pee in it, and he peed in a cup so that he could rub it on the sting. And he's like, oh, that went away really quickly. So I thought I'd just share that. This might be something that we can do. So I think that we are the divine inheritors of whatever God is, and we are the micro within the macro. They're like the Russian nested dolls. we're like the little doll in the middle, and the biggest doll on the outside is God, and then there's your higher self just above you. And your higher self is not going to give you a hard time, no matter what choices you make. I feel like that. Like you can live whatever life you want to. However, when you know what you know and what I know, you want to try and live the best way that you can, because this might well be a soul school, that we might actually be in a soul test to see whether we get caught up with the 7 deadly sins or whether we can work towards the heavenly virtues and become more virtuous, not Puritan, but more virtuous in the way that we deal with each other, and rather less warlike. Turn your weapons to plowshares, as they say. But there's more information on my website, which is on that flyer. So feel free to check it out. You can send me an email if you want any more information.
My brother is really interested in all of this, and is constantly sending me stuff on.
Ah, really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, and we can be a little overzealous and send loads of stuff that you never get to watch. But there was a great documentary called "A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon," which was done by Bart Sobrell. Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon, and it's NASA's own footage of them faking the moon landing. So that was good for me. Astronauts Gone Wild was where the same guy offered each astronaut, 10 of them, $5,000 to a charity of their choice, just to put their hand on the Bible and swear they went to the moon. Not one of them would do that. Even Neil Armstrong says, "Knowing you, Mr. Sobrell, that's probably not a real Bible, so I won't do it." I wouldn't care what book it was. If you offered me $5,000 to a charity of my choice to say that, did I come out today and do activism, I'd put my hand on any book and say, yeah, give me the money.
Yes. Yeah, I've never believed in the moon landing anyway.
Oh, well, that's good for you then. I did. I was willing to accept the story.
Well, I was sort of raised on David Icke theories and all.
Oh, really?
So I've seen him speak in Brixton Academy.
Okay. How many hours was that?
It was a whole day.
He does talk a long time, doesn't he? That's incredible what he does. But he won't touch flat Earth, by the way. But
right, I haven't.
I've been watching closely, but he won't touch flat Earth. Yeah. It's one of those really divisive subjects, and for me, it's like, do you have the clarity, or are you also called? Just like I say to people who are preachers of a religion, choose any religion you like. They're not lying; they're just contained within a box, and they absolutely know that box, and they will push that box, But they can't see outside of that box.
Yeah.
And David Icke may well be one of those people. Because for me, this is the gateway truth to everything. It's like, if you know that you've been lied to about the shape of the earth, even the shape of the earth, it means that all countries, even Ukraine, Russia, China, all these countries are actually controlled by the same entity. There is at the top table, there is no division. There is no separation. How old is your lad? 4. Oh, yeah, I know that. Oh, right in the tummy there. Well, you got to be careful, your brother's inside there. Yeah. Eh?
So are you South African, or?
I was born in Dorset, but I was raised in South Africa, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I went back there for a year last year, and had a really good time on the streets, talking to people there. And Africans are super skeptical of anything the government offer them, and they are super close to God. So for them, this idea that, wow, you need to realize that we are being tricked into a prison or into a zoo, and that you can step away from it and go back to the savannah, go back to the free land where you can grow your own things and not be reliant on the government for all these things. That's available to you, and you should take that. And my advice to anyone is to try and carve a route for yourself that minimizes the ties to the zoo or the prison and maximizes your freedom. You believe that?
We try to do that.
Okay.
I don't know what we're doing. It's actually going to ruin this time.
We made the choice with our younger son not to homeschool him, rather than because there's great maths and stuff and socializing children, but there's a lot of bells ringing. You've got to stand here now. It's a little like training a dog. You've got to stand here when the bell rings, then you've got to do this. Now you've got to be quiet for 20 minutes or sit on your bum for an hour, which is not what little boys want to do. And then they ply them with, or pound them with, all this indoctrination of evolution, Big Bang, you're not important, specks of sand, grains of sand on the beach and all that. You're so insignificant.
Yeah, Finn's only just started school and he's already done
All the
the
planets.
solar system and.
They get them young. Give me the boy till 7.
One of the first thing he learnt was about Guy Fawkes. So what happened to him.
Yeah. Wow, they frighten people and they're frightening them. You see, this is what they do, and they're giving them this this higher authority. Just like if I'd been brought up Jewish or Muslim, then the Imam would be my teacher. I would look to him as being the guy I listen to. He's going to interpret the Quran for me, right? And the same is true with scientists. It's like, wow, they're going to interpret the world out there that we can't see and measure and test. They're going to tell us what it is. And they're going to use cartoons, just like they say, someone was arguing earlier on that there is a molten core at the center of the earth. It's like there is only cartoons to prove that. We've only drilled 7.5 miles into the earth, so we don't know what's 4,000 miles, or if anything is 4,000 miles beneath our feet. We can't confirm that. But people are willing to believe it because they've seen a cartoon and a member of authority has said, stand here and listen to this. And that's mainly why I don't want my child to be... But we did it with my older children, so it's no foul. It's just simply, I know now what I know, and I can't, in good conscience, put my child in that situation, I mean, even now, if he goes into a playground, he might say to a child, the earth is flat, you see. And if he says that to a child, they'll probably argue with him and go, of course it's a globe and dinosaurs are real and all that sort of stuff. And he'll be in arguments with children trying to defend what he now believes, because, of course, we can't prove exactly what the earth is and how it works. We can't prove that. We can only take our observations and do some measurements, but we cannot prove what it is, and these guys are going to argue with him all day long, like people do in the street. Anyway, that's been a real space. You would want to test that the suit was going to be perfect in that condition. But the vacuum chamber that NASA can build is orders of magnitude weaker than the vacuum they tell us is out in space. And yet they still don't bother putting a man in a vacuum chamber here. They tried it once, and the man's tongue started to boil, and they've never done it again. So just that is enough to say, are we sure they're not doing it in a swimming pool? Because it looks like it to me. When we see bubbles rising from their helmets, we see in 2015 one man nearly drowned.
We've got to go and find Mommy. We've got to go meet her.
I know. I know. I'm just going to...
See how water always does this, right?
Yeah.
Always the surface is level. It's never going to bulge. So we're told that there's a whole lot of bulge of water, but because we live on a ball and you can't measure it. Science requires measurement.
He doesn't want to be filmed.
No, I do. It's fine.
Hello. Yeah, I actually had 70 people watching, but my battery ran out, so I've just restarted the live.
But I don't think like
Let's
when it's like this,
yeah.
it's not always completely flat. Do you think the world is flat?
I think that we live inside. Let's just say we lived inside an orange, and we would cut open that orange and let it fall open. Inside where the seeds are, those are the continents. So what we see around us is continents that are above the water. But that water there's one ocean on Earth, and that water has about the same level. Tidal variations aside, it has about the same level.
How come in one place in the Earth, like in Australia, it's a different time zone?
Okay, so the light, if it was, imagine a torch, and I'm taking it around your garden, it's not, your garden's big enough for that torch not to illuminate the whole garden simultaneously. So you would only, as the 24-hour day passes, so that small light moves around the garden and illuminates sections, and then as you move from one section to another, it becomes darker as you walk away. And so that's how we suggest that the light is working. The same is true with seasons. These things can all be explained on the flat Earth. In fact, all cultures, up until a few hundred years ago, accepted that the sun goes and that there was a small sun, small moon, and that's what you see. You see a small sun and you see a small moon, but you don't experience any rotation. The rotation, they say, is 1,000 miles an hour, faster than the speed of sound.
We've got to go, my friend. Come on, we're going to be late.
I know.
You can take my flyer and research this in your own time. You've got to research it yourself. I'm not going to try and sell you on anything. But I'm going to try and tell you that NASA and the government are all colluding to kind of mislead humanity, just like religion does.
I think the government do hide some things from us, but I don't think...
I was the same as you. I didn't think it was that big. I always knew there were some things being hidden, But I couldn't imagine it being such a grand deception. What if even Russia, China, Ukraine at the top table, these people are all working together? They're not enemies. Just food for thought.
I think on the it has to be round, otherwise it wouldn't orbit.
Yeah, this whole thing of orbit doesn't make sense. The lights are moving over our head. That makes sense. But the idea that these stars have been traveling for millions of years and they're still in the same place, there's a lot.
Light.
Yeah, you got a great mind. Just keep it open. Hey, good luck. Do you want my flyer? Do you want my flyer? I know I'm calling out NASA, but I'll give you some information.
Yes.
I got some information for you. We've been lied to about who we are and where we live. Yes, the government have been at it again. They have misled us. They've taken our tax money to pay for European Space Agency, and if you're in America, $50 million or $60 million a day to pay for NASA. Yeah, it's not a big part of the budget, but it's a lot of deception. Earth is flat, not a globe. Guys, sorry about that. My battery died, and I was in that conversation, and I only noticed at the latter part of the conversation that my phone had gone to 5%, and before I could get the battery pack in, I lost the stream. So I do apologize for the interruption in service. I see Jason of the Disbury is there. I just want to thank him once again. I appreciate it. Yeah. No, it was so it was just me and my battery, and I was having so much fun. Someone's taking a photo. That's not even what I mean. But I've definitely caught a few people's attention today. Not, it's not been like an overwhelming thing. There's a man who'll probably like to know. Brother, we've been lied to about who we are and where we live. Take my information.
You're joking. No way.
Oh, no, I don't work for the government.
Okay.
Nor do I think we come from evolved apes. That's all a lie designed to mislead us. We've never put a man in a spacesuit in a vacuum chamber, and yet we've been to space, they tell us. There's no barrier between a vacuum and a non-vacuum. That breaks the second law of thermodynamics. Belief is the reason why people go to war with each other, brother. Belief. Believe the lie, to tell lie, vision. Yes, hello. Hello, Wells. How are you doing? Good. Do not believe them when they tell you we evolved from apes and that we live on a spinning ball. Thank you. Thank you. Don't believe me, but test it to yourself. You can't prove that we're spinning. Earth is not a spinning rock, and we don't come from monkeys. I'll give them a flyer. Just now I had I don't know what I can call the lady with an official uniform on. Lady with an official uniform on come here and take images and whatnot of this, and because I thought she was going to give me grief about it, and actually in the end she just walked on. So. I know you guys are super young, but I want to give you my flyer anyway.
Is it about God?
Well,
What is it?
I say that God is you. So God
I'm
is
God.
in you.
Do you believe in God?
I believe that I believe there is a higher power.
Yeah.
And we could call it God.
Yeah.
But I think that the Christ is in you.
Yeah, me too.
That yeah.
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 Why are you filming? What are you
I've got
filming
a
about?
YouTube channel.
Have you actually? What's it called?
Yeah. Well, this one that I'm filming on at the moment is called Jason of the Disbury Family.
Hey.
What's
What's your YouTube? Wait, what are you on YouTube? What's it
it's
called?
Jason
of
the Disbury.
Can I have a flyer?
Yeah, sure.
The
Wait, do you think the Earth is flat?
I think that the sea is flat. The sea is the same. We have the same sea level, but the idea that it's a ball, we can't find any measurement to prove that.
So I am listening.
The astronauts.
Astronauts are fake. They've never put a spacesuit in a vacuum chamber. They've never even
Right,
tested it in a vacuum
Jason.
chamber. So when they do the spacewalk on the ISS, they're in a swimming pool. You can check it out. There's bubbles coming from the helmets. One man nearly drowned in 2015. It was on BBC. Oh, a astronaut nearly drowned on a spacewalk today because his helmet filled with water. Since then, they have to use a snorkel. Now, does that make sense on a spacesuit?
No,
No, it does
I'll
not.
be a astronaut.
You'd like to be an astronaut?
No, but I'll be one.
Oh, why?
I'll just be one.
Okay,
So I
but
can-
what if it's all fake?
Well, that's
Tim Peake, right? When he went, do you remember Tim Peake? Do you know Tim Peake?
No.
Okay, he's an English guy. Went to space, to the International Space Station 5-6 years ago, and there's a footage of him doing like a flip in space. Looks like he's wearing a circus.
subscribers.
Yeah.
Be quiet. No.
Yeah.
I think I'd kill myself if it's all fake.
Huh? You?
Yeah, yeah.
No, don't do that.
No.
You know why they faked it?
I subscribe to you.
Thank you. All right. The why they faked it is because they want you to think you're insignificant, that you're just an evolved ape, when in fact you
Damn.
are the most important thing here.
That?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna see. Alright.
Good luck, young man. So we're still hoping to do something of a festival this year, guys, by the way. More to follow on that. Let's see if I can add any more combos. Some information?
Thank you.
Oh no, these are my flyers. Don't be embarrassed. Take a flyer.
I'd love to, thank you.
Sure.
I see you wearing the Christian cross.
Me?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you know what? In Genesis, the earth is created before the sun and the moon, and the sun and the moon are small lights, and the earth is set upon pillars, and the waters are separated from the waters. So all ancient cultures believed like this. This is the Hebrew cosmology, by the way.
Right.
This is what the Hebrew Bible says, is that we have a firmament, and inside is the sun, moon, and stars, and there's one sea level, and then the continents are on top of that, so that we're inside like a bubble. And that, I mean, I put this here, this Psalms 19:1, because the guy who took us to the moon, a guy called Werner von Braun, he was a rocket scientist that came from Nazi Germany. He put on his tombstone that inscription, or rather Psalms 19:1, which is that it refers to a firmament, because we can't get out. The NASA rocket program goes up, they fly up about 40 miles, and then if you watch them long enough, you'll see they make a parabola arc and they start to go down, and we think they drop them into the Bermuda Triangle, and they collect them up, and then from there, the astronauts pretend to be in space. But all of this can be demonstrated to be easy to manipulate using CGI, using harnesses, using the Vomit Comet plane that they get as 45 seconds of 0G. And then when it comes to the spacewalks, they use a swimming pool. Now we know that they test in a swimming pool, but did you know, BBC said in 2015, and this is what happened, is that an astronaut almost drowned on a spacewalk. You may not have heard that, but it's like, well, how? If he's in space, is he drowning? Could he be in a swimming pool?
There's water in the suit now.
Well, this is what they have to say, that
Yeah.
there's water in the suit. But it's like, okay, so you have designed this multi-million-dollar suit that is so poor that it fills up and drowns an astronaut, such that all spacewalks now are done with a snorkel, in case the helmet fills again. Why is it, you could say, oh yeah, it's his cooling system or whatever. Or could it be that a leak in the suit caused the water pressure, when you're 10, 20 meters down, there's a lot of water pressure, started to find its way into his helmet. And what happens if you've ever taken a bucket into a swimming pool and pulled the bucket over your head? What happens is the air gets trapped in the very top of it, and the water will fill up to a point, and then the air will stop it from going up any higher in that. Well, that's exactly what it looked like in this guy's helmet situation.
The thing I don't get about, is it's such a, it's not just a few people. If it is, as you say, like a conspiracy that they didn't go to moon, it's not just like a few people who allegedly went to space.
So you don't believe
it's an organization of
Yeah.
NASA's like thousands, tens of thousands of people.
Yes.
And that's a lot of people to be in on it.
Yeah. How many Islamist preachers do you think are in the world?
I don't know.
Would you say thousands though?
Yeah, I guess.
You'd have to say that.
Much more, probably.
Yeah, but you don't believe Islam.
No, I don't.
And I don't think those people are lying. I think they believe what they know, and they teach what they believe. but that doesn't make it right. So when it comes to the compartmentalization of anything military, anything corporate, you don't have to know if you work for Tesco's or the Shelf. You don't have to know what they're doing in the boardroom in the next few months, right?
So what do you think the motive is then? Why spend all this money?
To deceive us.
Yeah, but what does that achieve?
Whoa, well, you think about the wars and this idea that, like, I raised my older children on this idea that we evolved from monkeys and that, we're not actually that important, that we're just a random happenstance, a lucky strike that happens to be here because of dinosaurs going out and some, meteor strike 65 million years ago.
But what do they get out of that, though? What do they get out of teaching us that?
Control of the mind. And once I control your mind, I might be able to control your soul, the spirit. And in the same way as if we were having a theological debate about why would they be lying about Islam or some other religion that you didn't want to believe in? Well, they must be trying to control those people, right? Well, the same is true with the NASA deception, is that they want to control you. So once we start to realize...
Is it the same with Christianity?
Yes, unfortunately.
So they're all lying as well?
No, not lying. I was raised Christian. I was raised by good men and women who were preachers and lay preachers and people like that who truly believe. No, they don't believe Genesis that says that the earth is not moving. I used to tell my preachers when I was a teenager, I was like, the earth is flat according to the Bible, right? Even though I was believing in science at the time. So no, I don't think that people are lying. I mean, there are some people in NASA and perhaps some people in the Vatican, for example, who know that they're controlling the game. Yes. But if you work as a NASA engineer in a particular part in rocketry or whatever, you know that your rocket has left the launch pad and you see it leave the launch pad and you're happy with that. Good results, the telemetry data's come back fine. But you don't know that what's out of sight, just like the magician, he's pulling strings and sending you data that makes you believe that your rocket's now 500 miles in the sky and traveling at 10,000 miles an hour and so on. But you can't see that anymore, even though you genuinely believe it, because that's what you've been told is going to happen next once your rocket leaves the launch pad. So no, I think it's really about control. And when you realize that, oh my gosh, what if all roads lead to Rome, and we have been controlled since the get-go? What does it mean for us? What does it mean for God? Because I believe that we are God's expression. I truly believe that. I feel that in my heart, that we are the expression of God, and there should be no master here but you. You and your relationship with God is the primary thing. I think what Jesus was trying to tell us is that you will do greater things than I, because you are, when you look in the mirror, you are looking at, you're looking at God. We were created in God's image, so the Bible tells us. So are we not that expression of God? And I'm not talking about the monkeys and the deer and the floats and stuff. I'm talking about mankind, that we are God's expression and we are meant to be at the top of the pyramid. Sovereign, divine beings.
But I thought the Christians were lying to us all, though. I thought none of it was true. They were all controlling us.
No, I don't think that. And I don't think that Muslims are lying. I think that what has happened is that...
But they're controlling us.
Yes. Yes. But none of what I've just said now, see, what I've just said now applies to every man, woman and child on earth. What Christians will say, or Muslims will say, or Jews will say is that what I believe applies only to me and my group. What they believe over there damns them somehow to hell. And to even within Christianity, you've got the Brethren and you've got all these sects within Christianity who would say, oh no, the way we practice is better than the Methodists and the Catholics or the Protestants or whatever. You've got, even within the religion, people saying our way of believing in God and Jesus and so on is the only way. If you don't take this way, then you're stuffed. Well, I'm saying no, you don't need a way, because the way is within you, that God wrote the truth on your heart, and you have a relationship, or can have a relationship directly with God with no intermediary, that you can be your own savior without waiting thousands of years for Jesus maybe to come again. And so all that, I have to believe that it was Jesus who died for my sins, rather than, hey, I've made my own sins, I've made my own hard bed to pillow, and I have to put my head on the pillow at night, and I have to work out my own shit so that I am not simply going to end up being like this sad, miserable, living in my own personal kind of hell. So yeah, the onus comes back onto you when you realize that, maybe it's me, that I, and all of us, of course, collectively, are that expression of the Most High, of God. And if we honor that, then we should not be serving two masters. And what we saw in 2020 was people didn't trust God. In fact, the churches closed all their doors in 2020. They did not trust God, and they trusted science. Now, science is another kind of God. That's another master that says, don't trust your natural God-given immunity. Go out rather and take the needle, take pins, and put them in your arm, and do all of this sort of stuff. Stay away from your grandma. Don't go and see her when she's sick. All that kind of thing, where God would say no, or Jesus would have said, tend to the sick. What are you frightened of? I'll go and be with the lepers. What are you frightened of? And we've been made to fear by another master, not God.
But surely tend to the sick by closing the churches and stuff. That is, in effect, tending to the sick, because you're preventing the spread, you're preventing death, you're preventing illness.
Yeah, okay. So that is that claim you just made. That.
Well, that's obviously based in my belief of science.
No, but if I'd asked you this question 5 years ago, if I'd said, someone in my family has got flu, can we come to church? They would say, yeah, of course you can. And if the person who's sick feels well enough, well, let them come along as well.
That's not it's a pandemic. That's different. An isolated incident of flu isn't.
I've got to be very cautious about what I say. I lost a big YouTube channel talking about this subject. For some reason, this subject is heavily censored. And you've got to ask yourself that question, why? Why isn't it not okay for me to have a different theory? Because Louis Pasteur, even the father of germ theory, on his deathbed is claimed to have said that it's all about the terrain, that your personal environment will determine when and if you get sick, not my personal environment, yours. So you are responsible for your health, and I'm responsible for mine. And if in 2019, when I had Christmas time got flu, I would not have had family around. If I'd listened to the news after another 6 months later, I'd be like, oh no, you guys go and visit me for a week or 2 weeks, rather than they all came around like normal and we hung out. But because of the media and the science, trusting the science, we all took this other view. And I promise you that if you pull up the Office of National Statistics data for the 100 years of death in England and Wales, you will realize that you were lied to about pandemic, that the numbers do not bear out. The total death rate for the country was lower, it was higher in 1985. And as a percentage, it was around about the same as the last 5 years prior to 2020. So it's not, to call it a pandemic, there would have to be like a 1, 2, 3, 4% increase in the number. All of a sudden, 1 in 100 people that would not have died should be dying. That would be maybe a pandemic. If 1% of the population had died, I'd say, okay, that's a pandemic. But when it's 0.01, that went up by something like that, I'd say, how can you call that a pandemic when 85 was far worse? And we had in 1968 a coronavirus so-called pandemic, and everybody who was healthy just carried on doing what they normally did. And all the social distancing, which made grandma, who was 95 years old, feel lonely and lost and scared and die 6 months, 2 years earlier than she would have otherwise have done, that for me is the crime against humanity. That for me is what churches. I spoke to an old lady who happened to be 2 years ago now. She had said, I haven't seen anyone for months. I've been stuck at home for months and months and months. This is horrible. The vicar was opening the church so they could test out a new organ or something, and she'd come along to try it out. And I loved going around churches, and I happened to be open, and there were no churches open, so I was like, can I just at least walk around and soak up some of the atmosphere and so on? And he was kind enough to let me do that. So I spoke to this lady, and she's like, I've not spoken to anyone for months and months and months. So what we actually did, because of the fear that was given to us by the television, is that we took on this information and said, yes, I can research this germ theory and I can understand this and I can accept that this is a problem, and so I'm willing to take these actions, which may be counter to my best to my best good. Hey, how are you doing? So I do not. I say it's like I said to the South Africans, is that, do you trust God and your own immune system, or do you trust the man who's telling you your immune system is now compromised and you cannot get flu, because if you do, you might end up dying? And they said to me, we've had none of this stuff here where we live in our townships. Your immune system is really robust. But if you take a child and put them in a plastic bubble and sterilize everything, do you know they'll become weaker as a consequence of having no access to any of the outside world? And that's what I think we've done, is we've actually weakened our children by hiding them from every kind of germ and every kind of possible toxicity and so on. Your body needs a little bit of toxicity, That's how your body's immune system learns and responds to the environment that you live in.
Yeah, I think we've got to go in a second. But
yeah.
It's a final thing. So recently I do something called an EPQ, which is like a dissertation. And I've written my dissertation on belief in conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
And what strikes me is that often with things like flat Earth,
I'd say that Earth.
you reach a conclusion prior to sort of. I'm not saying this is the case for you. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But it seems to me that most often people get to the conclusion and then reason it and then sort of justify their conclusion.
Well, what if we flipped that on its head and said that we're given the globe when we're 6 years, 7 years old, long before we can work any of the formulas out associated with that. We're given the globe when we're 6, 7 years old. Then we get to reify that with things that we can't actually test.
But did you reach the conclusion that the Earth is flat before you did research into it? Or did you just for no reason decide I'm going to research the science? And then afterwards you got to the conclusion?
Yeah, no, I did. I mean, I looked at flat Earth in 2015, early 2015, and I had to spend a lot of time looking back at the science of how does the globe work? How do the stars work? How do these things work? I had to do the science on that, and I had to go and research the science again. So it took me months. In fact, it was probably a year before I was willing to put my head on the block and say it's definitely not a globe. But I think we live inside it. But for what it's worth, I think we live inside a globe rather than we're living on some plate that's floating in space. Outer space can't be proven. And the second law of thermodynamics demands that you have enclosure, to have a pressure system. So actually, I had to, once I looked at flat Earth, I was like, I'm going to have to really go and look at all of the science that I took for granted and all of the alternative science that has been hidden, such as Airy's failure and the interferometer experiments of the late 1800s, where these were experiments that they were doing trying to prove Earth's spinning, and they can't.
Are there no more recent stuff than other than the 1800s?
No.
You can't disprove any the recent.
No, because we don't do it. I mean, we don't do science to prove that the Earth is spinning. Einstein himself said there's no earthbound experiment we'll be able to do to show that the Earth is spinning.
I saw a video recently of a group of flat earthers who set out to prove that the Earth is flat. And they found a flat plane, and they went on either end of it, and they held a light. And their theory was that if the Earth was truly flat, the person could stand on the other end of the flat plane with a torch, and it would go directly across. And they found that they were wrong. They found that when they shined the light, it was above where they estimated it would be.
Was that on National Geographic by any chance?
I'm not sure.
Because I have seen one like that. Because I've got lots of friends who've done laser experiments over line of sight, and we know that actually a lake is flat. That, as much as you might want to say no, it can't be flat, it is. It's a mirror when it's still. And we can see from one beach to another. Now there is a thing called compression, which you will know, like a train. Well, yeah. So like a train in the distance is tiny. Yes. As it gets closer, it gets larger. The same is true with all light, with all things. That there is a compression in the distance. So depending on how far you go away, you will lose a light. In fact, the furthest we can see a lighthouse is 50 miles, something like that, maybe 80 miles.
But if it truly
Posing for the cam.
on a flat Earth, on a truly flat plane, if something went just further and further back into the distance, it would never disappear completely. It just gets smaller and smaller and smaller, right?
No, not true.
Well, how could it disappear if it's on the same level?
Well, because there's the inverse square law. As you halve double the distance, the thing gets smaller and smaller.
Yeah, but it can never just disappear.
Well, that's what we observe over flat things. Is that we can make something. Where we can get things to go away, which is why I'll give you, as you come towards Wales, the first thing you see and the last thing you see will be the thing at the bottom. So we do lose things off in the distance. That's why the ships are going away. And guys have taken the P900 camera, the Nikon P900, where the ship has gone away, and then they pulled out the camera, and boom, they can bring that ship. They can bring that back up. So
yeah, but you can't do that if it's over the horizon. It doesn't matter how much you zoom in.
That's the crazy thing, is that's what you need to go and look. Just Google P900 bring ship back into view. Just Google that and go and see it for yourself. You go, that ship is gone. Now I've done similar experiments myself, but I haven't got any video to show you, other than I know other people who've done videos where it's like, yep, there it is. So same as when we look at the stars or with the same camera, we see that the stars are actually just these repeating patterns of some sort of light source.
Yeah.
But it's not, to make that into a rock is is a belief that we can't substantiate.
I've got to go now. I'm going to have one quick question.
Yes,
it's nice to meet you, man.
Yes, likewise.
One quick question before I go.
Yeah,
in
sure.
next sort of 30 years or so, it's estimated that we will have like sort of space travel, space exploration.
Yes.
Would you believe it if you in 30 years the technology was there and you went up in space and you saw that it was a globe?
If I could go into space,
would it then convince you? Would that not be
yes,
enough?
yeah. I mean, if you could take me up into space, not on a Virgin, one of those Virgin Galactic things that only spend like 2 minutes in the sort of in the upper atmosphere and they get a little bit of floating time. No, I mean really off planet as they call it. Yeah, but. Listen, I mean, I believed in moon landings, and so I grew up an atheist thinking that I was going to find life on Mars, and I was looking forward to the next thing. And they kept kicking the moon landings down the can down the road for decades now. And so I think that they keep saying, yes, in 2020. When I first found Flat Earth in 2015, people were telling no, but in 2020 we're going to have gone back to the moon by then, because that's what NASA was saying. Now we're in 2023. Oh no, we've had some problems with Artemis, or we've had some problems with this, or there's some kind of other thing. Now we still can't go, and yet we went 60 years ago with technology that wouldn't run your mobile phone. Take my flyer.
I will.
Yeah, good luck.
Thanks for the conversation.
Good luck.
So, is God real? What do you think of your perspective about God? Perspective?
My perspective on God?
Yeah, is he real?
Okay, so let me tell you quickly my story. I'm 55 years old, right?
Yes.
I went to war when I was 19 years old. I had to kill people for my country. Then I discovered after writing the book,
What was it like?
Well, it's war.
Stop it, Jay. Do that, Jay. That's my fucking popcorn.
You can show some respect if you don't mind.
No, just get
But I just want
Jay.
I want to tell you that it's really important.
Sorry, I took my popcorn.
I was an atheist up until 2015, but I took something called DMT. Have you heard of ayahuasca?
DMT? You took DMT?
Yeah, in 2015. And in that time, I took...
How good's that?
It's not a party drug, right? Though.
Yeah, I know
it's not a party drug. I've done, as I said, I'm 55. So I did mushrooms, acid, ecstasy, you name it. I did all of those things when I was young. All of those things. And I had no experience that ever made me think that I was God or associated to God. When I took the DMT, it was like I died. I was having a near-death experience, and I could see my higher self lying beneath me.
Maybe we should do some of that.
Perfectly.
I can get DMT.
Should we do it? I want to experience God.
And people have terrible trips if they don't get the right situation right.
Yeah.
So don't treat it. Don't treat it like with
Yeah, because he's a drug.
You want to be in a clean state of mind, and not just to be doing it for like a laugh, have a few beers, let's take the DMT out, because I think it can. I've seen a video of a guy having a horrible experience on it. Anyway, to tell you about my experience with the thing is that I think that you are at the fractal level, you are God. This is what not to kind of demean or diminish God, but to say that if we're inside of God, then everything here is God essentially, but that through your higher self. Have you ever seen the Russian nested dolls?
No. Yes.
Okay,
those really creepy things.
It's called Matryoshka. There's 7 nested dolls. Well, the small doll would be you, and the biggest doll would be God. But between that and God is your higher self. And I think that I went into that experience as an atheist and came out going, I know there's a God. I've just had an experience that got me as close to God as is possible without dying. But so I think that the religions...
If we take DMT, we become God?
No.
No,
you are already
feel
what
like
you are.
God.
No, you don't even feel like God. And
you see yourself at a higher level.
I could see my higher self, and I had a sense that there was something way above that, and that would be what I would consider to be God.
Do you think the Earth is flat?
I think the Earth is on a plane of water. Yeah, so I think that we're an electromagnetic torus, like an orange.
Yeah.
And if you cut that orange open and you let it fall open, the seeds on the inside is what the continents are.
Oh, yeah.
And at the microcosmic level, your body is also an orange, and the seeds in the middle are the flesh, the meat suit that we see here. So it's all electromagnetic.
So I'm even more orange.
It's enclosed, but the water that's sticking above the sea is level. And so, by the way, I raised children to university level before I worked this out. So,
where do you live? Wales.
No,
where are you from?
I'm traveling for the last 3.5 years, going around telling people.
Where are you originally from?
From South Africa. Well, my accent is South African. I was born in Dorset, but I raised South Africa.
Oh my God!
No, I'm born in London.
So there you go. So I do. You got my flyer, right?
Yeah, I had your flyer.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't want anything that I tell you to believe, but just to kind of know that, wow, we're being tricked seriously. You know, what's happened in the last 3 years is nothing by comparison to the deception that's been going on for centuries. And so they don't want you to know who you are and how special you are, and that the universe is designed for you, to have this divine experience of, and not be caught up in so much in the material kind of game that they got us playing.
Yeah, we understand.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good one.
You too, bro. Good
Have a
luck.
good Easter. Yeah, happy Easter.
All right. So that's I think going to be the last conversation of the day, guys. That's coming up for 3 hours. Owen's still here. Yeah. Don't bring drugs up to the hi John. They're capable of taking in you. Hey Dr. Law, nice, thank you. Glenn, Julia, school systems are ridiculous, I agree with this. I think that Glenn, all right, the point about these teams inflicting more damage on themselves. You see, that's what we do when we have this really messed up. And I mean, I've been friends, I've dated people who've had preachers as fathers, and even them, they can end up being like the naughtiest people, although often they find their way back into the fold, as it were, and follow the dogma. I'm just going to talk and take the banners down at the same time, and you guys who want to stay around can do the walk out of town with me. So you hope that, but of course it's only one conversation, but perhaps for one or a few of those, eventually they go, yeah, you know what, that guy was saying some stuff that sort of makes sense to me. Hopefully I haven't strayed into areas of conversation that get the YouTube censorship department up in arms. I have to say, one of the uncomfortable things about having a YouTube channel these days is that, every time you look at your email, you go, is it today? They're going to block me. Our team have reviewed your content and found that it violates our medical dispersion program, and we have therefore removed that, and we understand how that can sometimes feel a little upsetting, and there's no way of complaining about that, but we'll make you think that there is a way. And if by the time you've gotten hold of us, you've not given back your 7-day strike isn't over, then another one happens within 90 days. It's like Bill Clinton brought in the 3 strikes and you're out, isn't it? Oh, what a lovely leader he was. So when you guys you've seen my recent other ones, there have been some. In fact, it was the youths in I can't blame them, but it was the youths in Salisbury that got me talking. It was a piece that I'd done after the live had finished. Some guys had approached me, youngsters, and they were being pretty damn rude. And I ended up talking about the beer virus, and too much a little bit about how drinking that kind of beer is bad for you. And and taking becoming like a pin pusher, just say no, like Barbara Bush always used to say, just say no. When I came here, I was like, oh, the orange things I used the other time are missing, but they were here, they were all stacked here waiting for me to use. Don't you think this is really nice of the local authority to provide me with because one of the downsides with the banners is that if you're not carrying Jason's large metal structure that we carried around Europe, you can't really put the banners up, and they do need And I think those ones are 3 meters long or over 2 meters long. The ones that I've done here are only 80 centimeters or 1 meter deep. So they kind of go up, and that was what I was thinking, is I wanted some that I could be able to put up in a lot of different situations, I do appreciate those who stopped by, for stopping by. It makes it far more enjoyable to know that there's people that are, and of course I did call this the memorial live. I didn't, hopefully not to disrespect anybody, but our Truther community anyway has been rocked by the news that Bob Nordell has succumbed to, I don't know what, a short illness, or it's been a long-standing thing that he'd been keeping from the community at large. But when Flat Earth Fokker rolled over, that seemed very odd. I don't want to be too conspiratorial. These people have been legends, and they will be missed. So this is the deal with these. I will return them from whence they came. It's my preferred modus operandi. View the places you found it. So did you guys hear them talking about the Shroud of Turin display that's going on here at the moment? That's funny, isn't it? In fact, this cathedral here, just behind here, had a huge globe just a few weeks ago in it. I wasn't here, I don't think, at the time, unfortunately. I didn't know about it. But talking about things I didn't know about, there's a Truther event in Glastonbury next month. I think it's next month. And they're not even speaking about Flat Earth. They've got jokers talking about, I think, aliens and would you like the polite notice? Polite notice. Do not move these barriers. It's polite. It's funny, the polite notice is a bit like a mandate, really. You don't have to notice. Stones out here, not mine. Slab. Yeah, so I think possibly I can get together with Harry tomorrow. That's maybe Jason, who knows? But if not tomorrow, then soon. I'd like to do it with these guys. I'll have my channel back by next Sunday, all being well. So you can count on me being back on my channel next week, although it has been really nice being able to jump onto Jason's. He is carrying more subscribers than me, and therefore I probably got a little boost in viewers that might not otherwise have seen, although I did notice more, perhaps a few more trolls. Not trolls, but people whose religion they can't handle being challenged, and who feel the need to express that. I tell you what, if you think Muslim fundamentalism is staunch, you haven't really considered the globalist mind. Although I must say I did prefer YouTube back in the day when they would allow beheading videos for the fundamentalists. But don't talk about flu. Do not talk about flu. So there we go. It's coming together nicely here. The old and the new. You know, when you talk to those youngsters, it can go either way. You know, they can be, and there's a few of them, they'll say things that they wouldn't say otherwise. Oh, look what fell out of my thing. Are you a blue dot? So that's definitely worth giving Dave Weiss a shout there. He's also someone who's done an awful lot to further the journey towards unraveling this realm. You ever wonder whether, like, if everybody knew, they would pull the plug on the place? Is that why they don't want people to know? Because they have to. Once you know, then it's like, okay, well, we can't continue to trick you. We can't continue to trick you and get you to make wrong choices that aren't suiting your soul, that aren't to the benefit of your soul. You want to wonder that? Hold on a second. I called Andrea just now, well before the stream started. Hi. Can I ask you a question? I want to ask her about why she was taking pictures. Not why, I don't care about that, but whether her control room had a view on me being here. Hi.
Those kids that you saw here earlier, did you see what direction they went?
I thought they went generally that way, although I wasn't watching. I thought they moved that way.
Yeah, they've gone down towards the town centre, High Street. Thank you.
Cool. Oh man. She's on the blower with the police there. Those kids are. Oh, I should have sent them the wrong way. I couldn't lie in that moment. I didn't know exactly why she would be asking. But I'm sure those little kids are. Those little kids are, creating their own little bit of mischief. But we do know that this system is. However, this is the thing: is that we don't act really very well. We don't behave very well, and there's not to pass judgment, but it's like, like I say to people, if you feed 3 puppies in a cage full of 10, it's going to turn the behavior of those puppies into a nightmare. A little bit of distilled. I haven't drunk very much, as you can tell. I don't think I've eaten much today either, so I'm going to be heading home shortly to the place we're staying at the moment. And I'm sure my good wife will have something prepared for me. She may have watched some of the stream. You would have seen the Trinities in the chat. perhaps. If you haven't subscribed to my main channel, Trinity 4, and my backup channel, The Trinities, I would ask that you do. The main channel is sitting at enough subscribers to go live, if I haven't been naughty. However, the small channel really could do with some help.
Some people do believe that.
See that? See that? See the chalk, and that's why if you live in a town, you go to that town, and you do a little bit of that. It's not it's not a thing that you can get into trouble for. I mean, as you see, that lady with the walkie-talkie, she couldn't do anything with it. So it's not a thing of foul, by the way. I'll show you guys who are still watching. Thanks, by the way, for hanging out. I hope you're doing some exercise while you're watching me, not just sitting in the basement at the Globus do. So this is Wells Cathedral, built by pious little men, tiny men, with tiny horses and tiny carts with wooden wheels. But because they loved the God so much, they came and spent 3 years building this thing. Oh, look at this. Someone has been putting you see, someone has actually been clever enough. What is this? Oh, that's awful. How could they possibly do such a thing? Let's see, pink rubbed out a little early, so let's not. Now, unless there's rain, this will still be here in the morning. And tomorrow is a bank holiday in England. So there'll be even more people here, even if I don't come here. Fix. Outer space. Outer space. It's almost like a game, I suppose. You know? All this done in the smallest city in the country, 11,000 people. Can you imagine, if you built this today, you'd have 11,000 people in the health and safety department. I wrote something over here. Let's see if it's still here. Yeah, let's see. Let's them up where they walk. people who, you know, like I say, that the people who sell some of the stuff truly believe what they're saying, and they believe it so much that they cannot accept the possibility that they're wrong. Oh, here's some more. You can see it's been rubbed out a little bit by someone smart enough to think, oh, let me rub it with my foot, but not smart enough to take a little water and wash it away. Anyway. The preacher who told me off at the beginning of Glastonbury thing last week, you know, they don't want to hear a conversation. They say, hey man, the book says the earth is not the globe. The book says we evolve. Why are you allowing for it? Why are you allowing for that? Why do you just accept that or roll over on that science? Oh, like that guy said earlier on, oh, if the scientists have said this, then it must be real. Some people are about to do a little race down there. Enjoy it. Oh, they're rolling cheese or something. They're rolling balls or something. Things do roll downhill, but apparently they can roll up the side of the globe as well. Oh, it's eggs. How cool.
Hang on a minute. That was let go of really early.
The boiled eggs.
What about my
Fantastic.
one?
Hi.
Didn't wait.
So boiled egg. So I was thinking about this a little bit, like the boiled egg thing. Is it the case that this cracking of the egg has got something to do with them trying to get us out of here? By the way, when I walk through this wall here, I'm the signal because the satellite can't get through, so I'm going to say goodbye. And Did I spell it? Yeah, it is. I know. I thought that when I did the outer. That's, yeah, thanks for pointing that out. But I am actually, I love spelling, so I was thinking too much. Thanks, Jason, for the plug. But yeah, I've got to walk out of town here, and as I do that, I know from previous, I won't have enough signal strength to outer space with a double T. Something was telling me there's something wrong there at the time, but I was really chatting.
Go through there.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Dave Weiss is a permanent member of the robot system. Okay, well, I will say goodbye and. Yeah. Okay, Harry's on his way. Alright. Hammy said it was an enlarged heart. Yeah, well, rest in peace, Bob. Noto. I appreciate everything you did. And will continue to do given the work that you've done. So, I'm going to say goodbye from Wales. And, yeah, I honor Bob and the others that have gone before for their work. And we don't know where this ends, and I'm sure Bob would have loved to have seen the world wake up to this. It wasn't to be, and maybe never. Like I said to someone earlier, maybe it's never meant to be that everybody wakes up. Maybe that everybody waking up thing is just a pipe dream. Okay, guys.